Very good morning to you. Welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTBAM. We're here with you all the way until 9:30 this morning. A very big week for us. We're going live all day. That's all day from 7 o'clock all the way until midnight on Thursday. It's transfer deadline day. It's also the proper launch of our Premier League coverage. We'll give you more details about that as the week goes on. In the meantime, myself and Eoin are here to parse over what happened last weekend and really to begin the countdown to next weekend, which is also the start of the Premier League season. But now the renewal of two of the greatest rivalries of, well, this millennium.
Yeah, but obviously one of those rivalries is kind of a little bit...
one-sided?
Yeah, one-sided, but also one of them...
I mean, Tyrone did beat Kerry a lot. I know, I understand that's where you're going with that.
But it's a completely different thing. I mean, we're living in the moment of the Dublin and Mayo rivalry.
No, I'm joking.
With the main players.
I can't believe it. Straight away. You're like, straight away.
If you mention anything negative around the Kerry-Tyrone rivalry, it will rile me immediately.
Wow, straight away. You had a good weekend then, did you?
Yeah, pretty good weekend.
Still a bit sunburnt?
Yeah, always get... To be fair, if I step out in cold weather in the middle of December, I probably get sunburned.
Yeah.
So,
how was the traffic? You were at...
Is that all together now? Yeah, the traffic seemed to have made national news.
Oh, it was non-stop. The bitching about the traffic was like, oh my God, come on. You're going to a festival, you're having a good time, you're in cars on the way down, and you got bored, and like, okay. What was the worst that happened? People got bored.
Yeah.
There was literally, there were no bad outcomes. Some people might have missed a few things that they wanted to see.
Basically, and I think everybody got there eventually by the end of the first night. Like, people do this thing that they tend to help the traffic move along by getting out of their car and peering over the other cars, and that really sped up traffic. And to be fair, yesterday coming back, there was a lot of people trying to funnel through traffic lanes that just did not exist. So I don't want to blame it all on the people, but the people did not help.
Well, you know, I mean, that might be interesting. It might be some personal responsibility.
Some personal responsibility certainly has to be shared.
What time did you? What was your traffic story? Did you just go down and it was fine because you went early, or did you leave
early-ish? But it was still fairly disastrous, to be honest. Like, I wasn't really too aware of this. You're kind of in a bubble down there, but I'd heard that news stations were running stories about it. Like, it's a bit of traffic. Turn on the radio. Listen to Off the Ball if you're going down late, whatever it may be.
It's a chance to complain, Eoin. That's what it is. It's a chance to complain about something that other people think is actually quite good, and so therefore, you know, it's like. Cutting the legs from under this festival before it gets too uppity, so that next year was like, I'm not going to go because the traffic was bad last year apparently. But was it a really good festival when you got there?
It was amazing. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Right, it was brilliant. So I think that's the only thing that matters, rather than how much time.
Oh no! All of the coverage was the traffic is terrible. Don't go to this thing. It's a waste of time.
Is it cancelled now?
I mean, you know, but actually that means it'll be easier to get tickets next year, which is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I meant cancelled in the sort of sense that it's now not morally acceptable to go to this thing. But
so did you miss the Kerry-Meath game?
I did, but I've completely caught up. Spent yesterday trawling through tape, as they might say in America, reading articles and kind of looking back at what happened. And I was obviously following it live on my phone, and there was a few nervous moments. But it just tends to be, when it comes to Meath this season, there is a sort of 53, 55 minutes drop-off. And once I think Kerry were actually still in the lead by 3 points at that time anyway, so they were always going to pull away. But there are worrying signs, and the old questions and the new questions really about their defence and the solidity of that are still there. I don't think anybody really got carried away with what happened in Killarney a few weeks ago in terms of them answering those questions against Mayo. But I think we now know for sure that they're going to be tested in that department this weekend.
Yeah, well, you'd still make them favourites, would you not, against Tyrone?
Yeah.
Like on the basis,
I think they're 1 point favourites at the moment.
And I didn't know that. On the basis of the game against Mayo, they've had the best performance of those two teams at any point over the championship.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think Tyrone haven't been able to put together a performance as impressive as what Kerry did that afternoon, and the way they managed to shoot the lights out is something that Tyrone just aren't able to do. Like, it's as simple as that. Tyrone just don't have as good a pack of forwards as Kerry do. But the thing is, if this game doesn't become a shootout, if it is a bit of a slog, if it is slow, ponderous build-up play from both sides, Tyrone have every chance in this game. But the thing is, Tyrone kind of played their hand a little bit against Cork a couple of weeks ago. We now know, it's nothing new, but we know for sure that the likes of Matty Donnelly and Colin McShane are vital parts of their plan A. And to me, if you're getting the best out of them, you're kind of playing in a way that resembles something of a shootout. So I think that will play into Kerry's hands a little bit. It's going to be a great encounter, you would imagine. But it just seems to me that if Mickey Harte didn't come up with something last year to take out the Dubs, what's he going to come up with this year? It seems that it was it wasn't just an unimpressive performance against Dublin in the All-Ireland final last year. It was also kind of devoid of any mad thinking. Like, we were sitting here in the studio last year thinking, what on earth is Mickey Harte going to do? This could be fascinating.
Well, they started well.
They started well.
And then they panicked. So there's a bit like, if I think they can go back and say we started really well, and if we continue to play that way as opposed to panicking and swallow hard 20 minutes in and go, okay, calm down everybody, let's try and win this game over 80 minutes as opposed to in the first 25 minutes, then maybe they don't need to have a revolutionary idea, because there is no revolutionary idea. It's Gaelic football. Everything has been tried at some level over the last 100 years, one way or another, and if it was that good, it would have come out by now. So, although having said that, I do think that where Lee Keegan plays this weekend from Mayo against Dublin is going to be pretty interesting. You're saying outside that you think it should be Kieran Kilkenny?
Yeah, well, I think it will be Kieran Kilkenny rather than thinking who it should be.
Well, what about if it was Jack McCaffrey? What if you just decided, I'm going to stick him on Jack McCaffrey, he's not going to beat us for pay, he's not going to score any goals against us, and every time the ball is in his area, Jack McCaffrey's suddenly worried and going backwards?
Yeah, like, I'm not sure putting him on a back is actually the best way to do it.
I mean, it's not a back, it's the back, the best, the most potent attacking force as a defender that I can really remember. And I don't know, I just think that, like, you send out your team to make the opposition think a bit, and they go, oh, that's interesting. Because it's not like, I mean, obviously, was there a bad miss at the weekend? His ability to score is in these big games, particularly in Croker, is well established. I don't know.
It's part of Lee Keegan's duty as a man marker to do everything above and beyond man marking. I mean, the idea of getting inside Diarmuid Connolly's skin was been well documented. There was the added effect of not just taking out an extremely effective attacking force. There was also the idea of getting into that person's head, and the kind of psychological thing of outscoring somebody like Diarmuid Connolly as a back was a huge thing. I'm not sure does it have that double whammy impact it might have against Jack McCaffrey, to be quite honest. And I think the central position of Kieran Kilkenny is something as well. I mean, does Jack McCaffrey then look at Lee Keegan marking him and is like, all right, I'll take Lee Keegan out of the game. I can beat this guy for pace, and I'm only going to get whatever it may be, 5 or 6 offensive possessions.
Well, the pace will be close enough, right? It's like
McCaffrey's faster than Keegan.
He is, but like maybe not so fast that he can't actually. That you don't end up in a straight line race. Like that's why he's such a great defender. It's that like he's smart enough to be able to nullify that small advantage that he has. Everybody else has a massive advantage.
Yeah, well, if we see Lee Keegan marking Jack McCaffrey, you can be sure that Jack McCaffrey's channel of running will suddenly coincide with where the referee is running. He will just constantly run in front of the referee and ensure that Keegan kind of keeps his hands to himself. And like, Keegan's absolutely brilliant at doing that. Mayo are absolutely brilliant at doing that. They're wise and they're street smart, and that is one of the reasons why they've been one of the teams that have been able to go toe to toe with Dublin when it has mattered over the last few years. It's going to be a fact. Like, I really do. Like, it's our most recent evidence in a big championship game. It was Kilkenny. That was what Lee Keegan did, and he did a fairly good job. He was brilliant on the other end of the ball as well. Like, so, I don't know. Like, you talk about the rivalries at the top there. This is something really to just be appreciated this weekend, mainly because all the evidence points to the fact that Dublin are ridiculously heavy favourites for this. There's still only a 5-point handicap or whatever it may be for this game, but there's very little tangible things you can point to and say Mayo are better than Dublin in this area. But yet, as we were sitting here last week saying the same thing, Mayo have a chance.
Okay, the size of that chance we'll try and establish a little bit later on. Here's what's coming up on the show this morning for you, as we've already brought you the kickoff. We've got the papers coming your way in just a minute. Gaelic football from 8:05. Anthony Moyles and Mossy Quinn going to join us in the studio, and we're going to just get into it really, because it is the build-up to what is promising to be the best weekend of Gaelic football that we've had since, I don't know, since before the Dubs were this all-conquering, unstoppable juggernaut. It's that good. Daniel Harris is going to join us at 8:35 to talk to us about the money that's been spent on Harry Maguire and whether or not it's a good thing, or whether or not the money matters at this point. I mean, if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it doesn't really matter how much money it is. All you need is Harry Maguire to shore up that defence and to be good. The Irish rugby squad, we look at the cuts at around about 8:55, the first indications. Ultan Delan is gone. It's very disappointing given how great Delan was when he burst on the scene. So he's a big season ahead of him. 9:05, sports news, and then Deal or No Deal as the transfer window hurtles towards its conclusion in the UK. Great stories about Christian Eriksen, which we'll get into in the newspapers in just a minute. As ever, if you want to tweet us, use the hashtag OTBAM, or if you're listening to us on the Go Loud app, or indeed on TuneIn, then you're very welcome this morning as a radio show as well. You can always get in touch with us on whatever other stream you're watching us. Just leave a comment below us. Right, time for the papers.
Join Off the Ball in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd for the inaugural Off the Ball Open. With flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, gala awards dinner, Peter Lorry golf clinic, and a live Off the Ball roadshow. You can also hang out with some special guests, including Kevin Kilban and Kieran Donaghy. The inaugural Off the Ball Open. Book now at CassidyTravel.ie and check out offtheball.com.
Yeah, get on to Cassidy Travel and pay your £250 deposit and make sure you've got a seat on that plane. We hope to be announcing some other big names coming very soon for that one as well. I'm going to take you through the Irish Times here. Mayo unlikely to withstand the blue wave is the Kevin McStay piece. I wonder, is this a bit of Yarra from Kevin, or is it just the truth? Is that how he feels? It's hard not to, at this point, feel like... I don't know, we'll talk about that with the lads who know what they're talking about a little bit later. Jerry Thorney's piece, World Cup warm-up games and necessary evil. I didn't know this, but he points out that in 1987 the RFU didn't play any World Cup warm-up games and didn't allow their players to play any club games for 2 months before the World Cup. And funny enough, when they got there, they were a little bit undercooked. Also, Sean Moran, sorry, this is interesting because obviously very well sourced. GAA unlikely to pull plug on Super 8s before third year. I thought it was ridiculous that was the conversation. There are dead rubbers, and apparently the dead rubbers were the only other thing that people were giving out about as much as the traffic at the weekend. The whine about the games. That's how a league works. The end of the league before playoffs, teams rest players because they've got their business done. That's how a league works. It happens in the league. It happens all the time in every championship all around the country. And I don't know why people expected it to be any different. Yeah, and some of those people might also be saying that the league is the best competition we have in terms of the springtime, and that should be moved to the summer. Well, you also have tons of dead rubbers in the league. So there's 2 problems here. One of them is perhaps the timing of the Super 8s, that it's coming in the middle of the season, and that actually having round-robin games, actually having group stages games, is just in the wrong place. It should be earlier in the year with, say, an All-Ireland thing. And then, second of all, you have kind of like a small group in that there shouldn't be any dead rubbers in a 4-team group. But to be fair, you get that in the World Cup and stuff like that. So get it in the Champions League. The point of the Super 8s was not to fix everything. It was to get more games where good teams were playing against each other in summertime. And that was and that's all it's been able to do because we still have the crap provincial championships. And while we continue to have the crap that are the provincial championships, the whole thing is unfixable. Yeah, for sure. The back page of the Sun this morning is Harry Plotter, United new boys vow, Maguire in it for loot. And then fans take the mick. Mickey Hart says GA fans have no God-given right to see every big game on free-to-air TV. And the Red Hands chief believes that RTE has a vested interest in suggesting otherwise. That's in reference to a Sunday game conversation at the weekend. Apparently Mickey Hart doesn't like RTE. McCarthy, Sweetener, Everton have put together what they consider to be a £100 million package to sign Wilfred Zaha, and James McCarthy will be involved in that package. Cenk Tosun is the other player involved in around a £65 million cash fee as well. So what's the story, McCarthy? So McCarthy will be offered by Everton to Crystal Palace in exchange for Wilfred Zaha, but on top of James McCarthy they'll be offering £65 million and Cenk Tosun. Wow, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a pretty huge offer, to be honest. It would be a good move for James McCarthy, I think. Palace moving on to Crystal Palace. They won the Cahill stakes as well. Well, they absolutely did. They're paying him £75,000 a week as a 33-year-old central defender. This is that's quite an achievement by Gary Cahill to manage to get that sort of contract. There's one other story here in the back of the Sun. Carl Frampton's fight this Saturday is off after he was knocked out by a vase in a freak accident. So he's in Philadelphia for a scheduled comeback bout against Emmanuel Dominguez, but Sun Sport understands that the falling ornament inflicted the damage as he chilled out ahead of the weekend's action. He's understood to be devastated. It's Kevin Byrne's story in the Sun this morning. The Racing Post, Kieran Fallon, they've got a feature about him in the Tuesday Profile, 2 pages on him, and then also the news that Too Darn Hot has been retired after a leg injury. Sussex Stakes hero bound for stud after suffering leg injury, underwent successful surgery and will be grand. Back page of the Mirror this morning is It's My Dream Move. Maguire says he would never turn down Reds. I'm here to win big trophies, says Harry Maguire. Must get real, says John Cross. Manchester United do not believe Real Madrid are serious about buying Paul Pogba, so they offered £30 million plus James Rodriguez for Paul Pogba. Manchester United say that's not a good enough offer. It's pretty you would laugh at that offer if you were Ed Woodward. And Rooney's ready to be a Ram, so this is an interesting one. Wayne Rooney could make a sensational return to English football with Derby County. He's being linked with a player-coach move with the Rams. Right. Because he was saying last week that he wasn't going to leave and that a journalist put it to him that Colleen was like saying she wanted to go home. He's like, oh, that's what it is it? Is it? She's the boss, is it? And I was like, well, it very petulant, unusually petulant from Rooney in a press conference. So the front of the Examiner this morning, dark days, Kildare's Cian O'Neill on the torment of letting down your own people. He said he didn't leave home for 4 days after Westmeath beat them. The wonder of you, Tony McEntee, and why we are all still infatuated with Mayo. Tony McEntee, he thinks that, now obviously he spent a lot of time with Mayo, but he thinks that Dublin's performance against Tyrone at the weekend was important because it demystified the whole sense that, sure, their second team is as good as any team in the country, and that actually they're not, and that they're good up to 16 or 17, but after that, he's not sure how the reserves are. James McCarthy's coming back. He's a proper Rolls-Royce footballer. But the forwards, he said the other day, didn't look good. He didn't think Diarmuid Connolly played well, and he didn't think Brogan and O'Gara played well, or Rory Carroll. He said, look, this is their twilight appearance. And I was like, well, this is pretty interesting. It's quite hard-hitting stuff. And then I turned the page, and Micheál Quirk is like, he thought that Connolly was great. So, this is why we have opinions, and this is why we have markets, and this is why there are debates about these things. I thought Connolly looked pretty decent, to be honest. I thought that there might be a glimpse into his future with the Dublin team over the next couple of years in that performance, where he's not charged with scoring or being the only creator in the team, but that actually he will be picking the ball up from the half-back line, will be picking the ball up around midfield. Who knows, maybe he ends up as a sweeper, playing till he's 40. Who knows?
I felt like I'd never seen an outside the boot pass ever when I saw Diarmuid Connolly back on the pitch at the weekend.
5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah, there's just something about the way that he executes it that's better. Even when David Warren knocked over that massive 50-yard one off the outside of the right boot against Meath at the weekend, there was just still something about Diarmuid Connolly's passing off the outside of the boot that's just that little bit sweeter that I kind of missed, to be quite honest with you.
It was good, wasn't it?
It pains me to say it, but I kind of missed it.
It was good. It was good he was back. McAtee's point about Mayo, and we have an infatuation with them as a country and as football fans. It's true. It's absolutely true. I just feel like maybe they're out of row this weekend.
Yeah, the evidence is there. We've seen it this summer that when Mayo don't have a good run up to a game, or they are a little bit leggy, they can let themselves down, because you can either take that at face value, or you can say that their worst performance so far this year was down to the fact that they just didn't care about that game. Now the thing is, they will definitely care about this weekend, but I'm not sure if I actually buy that Mayo actually made a calculated decision to not care about a football match this summer.
It's not calculated. You see, that's the thing. They can't turn it on and off.
Subconscious.
It's 100% ingrained in them that this is not do or die, and so therefore, does it really matter? Yeah, it matters. Come on, you tell yourself, but you can't cheat it.
The back page of the Herald this morning is Doherty woe for Mayo, cruciate injury fears grow for Jason ahead of big clash with Dubs, and a story that is probably leading the way in the Irish Independent, I think, this morning as well. Jack set for Lily, so Jack O'Connor poised to become the next Kildare football manager.
The Irish Daily Star this morning, Mag in the bag. Harry Maguire insisted he couldn't turn down Manchester United after completing his €90 million move to Old Trafford. And then black cards, an awful nightmare. This is Mickey Hart, who also says that he was talking about the black card came in after a rant about Sean Kavanagh deliberately pulling somebody down. And if you look at what Peter Hart did 10 minutes into the game, was it against Donegal or was it against whoever it was, Cavan, certainly one of them, that why would anybody be deliberately pulling somebody down? It was a clumsy challenge, and that's not what the black cards were brought in for. And so therefore, the fact that he's at risk of missing an All-Ireland final if he gets black carded against Kerry is ludicrous. I can see Mickey Hart's point. An accumulation of black cards leading to you missing an All-Ireland final doesn't really seem right, does it?
No, it seems a bit unusual. I know he was specifically asked about that incident. I presume anyway he was asked about that in his press conference yesterday. But is that sort of kind of Sunday build-up quote? Is it Peter Hart better not get black carded this weekend?
I think, I don't know, it might be. And fair play if Mickey was already thinking like that, because he obviously wasn't thinking about the Dublin game, so maybe he was thinking about that. But it's a good point, right? If we're going to get to the point where some players are going to miss All-Ireland finals because of black cards, something probably needs to be done about that.
Yeah, if it's an accumulation of red cards, say, throughout the season, or there's kind of a fair suspension for boxing the head off somebody in an All-Ireland semi-final, then fair enough. But for somebody that you could deem to be non-intentional.
Well, say you get it's three over the course of it. Say you get one in the first game you play and one in the second game you play, and 9 games later you get a third one in the All-Ireland semi-final, which is not a million miles away from Tyrone's season this year. That's not fair, is it?
Yeah, it's a pretty big gap.
They need to expunge every 4 or 5 games.
I think the specific case of this isn't fair, but also it comes down to the foundation of this, which is the black card, and it just clearly has not worked whatsoever. And actually having a significant impact on what you're actually doing as a result of this black card and getting suspended for an All-Ireland final does seem a little bit unfair. But you would just like to think that Peter Hart will be refereed like every other player at the weekend.
I'm sure he will, yeah. Ericsson, I look at you, obviously, already sending out the message to the referee. Don't buy any of that Mickey Hart bollocks, is what you're saying. That's what the subtext of the Kerry message has gone out. Did you get a WhatsApp in the middle of that conversation there? Just make sure you...
There's just actually somebody in my ear.
Okay, that's class. Technology
this is not linked up to the studio whatsoever.
This is a good story. Ericsson and cheap exit. So, obviously, it would look like Christian Eriksen is probably going to stay, is what most people think, but he's refusing to sign a new deal, and he's only got a year left on his deal, which means that he'll be free from January 1st to start talking to people about what happens next year. Spurs have been looking for 140 million euros, and now 3 or 4 clubs are like, well, you ain't getting that, buddy. We're going to end up driving the price down. So suddenly there is an auction, and it probably is going to mean that he ends up leaving before the end of the European transfer window.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disaster for Spurs if it ends up going beyond that, because this will become the saga of the entire season. Christian Eriksen in his last couple of months in Spurs, and Levy will not get the money that he's looking for. It's a huge sum that they're looking for Christian Eriksen. I don't think anybody's going to stump up that amount of cash.
I mean, he's probably worth close enough to it if you compare what he's able to do versus some of the players who are currently being... well, maybe not.
But with 1 year left in your deal, you have to accept some sort of cut price, and it's going to be below 100 million quid.
Yeah, sign him up though. Keep him. Do whatever you can to keep him. You've got the money now.
Yeah. I would definitely think on the balance of things, you have to keep Christian Eriksen. Does Danny Levy have his eyes on somebody else? Though, we were talking about Dybala last week, and if Christian Eriksen went, would he be a perfect solution for Spurs? He might fit in with Spurs, with Spurs signing rather than Manchester United, and that could be something that they do with the money. Dybala, according to the reports, has turned down Manchester United because of their contract offer. I mean, do you get the Christian Eriksen money and put that into Dybala's wages as well? You would like to think that Levy has a plan B here if Christian Eriksen is going to go. It's a bit of a nuisance that there is a 2-week gap between the 2 transfer windows, and it's a bad move from the Premier League in that regard. All those big European leagues should probably come together.
Have you finished? Got one more?
Racing Post leads with Tudor and Hot being retired, and on the back page, England are 5-2 to bounce back from Ashes blow.
Don't be hasty. Red Hand boss insists Super 8s needs patience. So that was the other aspect of Mickey Hart's story. He thinks the Super 8s, the dead rubber thing, I mean, it happens everywhere. So calm down, everybody. People are quick to dismiss things because they've got some difficulties with it. There's always going to be a possibility that the last game wouldn't have much meaning other than the status of just having to beat somebody, or these dead rubber games in terms of the outcome. I don't think any game is a dead rubber. I mean, obviously it was completely, but and then picture from the Dublin Kerry women's football game. Kerry's Ciara Murphy with Dublin's Carla Rowe. Dubs too strong for Kingdom is the picture there. And Schmidt begins to trim his World Cup panel as first names are cut from training squad. So Joe Schmidt has swung the axe early by cutting Ultan Dillane and Rory Scannell from his World Cup training squad. Dillane and Scannell were named in Schmidt's initial 44-man panel, later enlarged to 45 to accommodate Will Addison at the end of May, and were there for the 5 weeks, which took them all around the country, but then they were cut. So after the Italy game on Saturday at Lansdowne Road, which I'm sure everybody's very excited about, then it'll be cut from 43 to 38, and then the final cut will happen. It's tough getting this far and then being cut.
Having to do the slog of pre-season and then saying, actually, there is no international season for you.
Yeah, now, if you're Dillane, you must be thinking, okay, I am as fit as those guys. I'm going to make sure that I have the best season of my life because Joe Schmidt's gone in 2 months, and the new head coach is going to see that I am the best player who is catapulting myself into the season with all of the pre-season, the benefits that I've had from that. That can only be the only way you can get out of this. Yeah, and it's really tough for Dillane to take, given he actually played well in the Six Nations this year when he was a bit par player. In Rory Scannell's case, it's a bit different. He hasn't played for Ireland, I think, since June 2017 at this point, so
the wait has been longer. He's probably going in there saying, I would be overachieving to make this squad. Like, there's a couple of interesting ones to this, like who gets in now instead of Delan. We all kind of suspected that John Klein had a very, very good chance of making the squad. He's kind of put more into view now as a result of this.
Yeah,
and then with Rory Scan, like it's interesting to see Mike Haley still in and around the squad.
And how do people feel about John Klein, who is a South African who becomes qualified, I think, this week, who will play this weekend?
That's no coincidence.
Well, Kerry's Ultan Delan playing for Connacht doesn't get a chance to.
When you say people, do you mean people inside the squad or Irish rugby supporters?
I think that's a good question. I don't know.
I would say in the squad it's fine. I mean, the culture is there that there's been many people who've come through and have come from other countries to actually represent Ireland, so I don't think that's much of an issue. But
well, it's just that Delan's been around the squad. Wasn't Delan on the pitch in... was he on the pitch in Chicago? Was he one in that famous picture of all the Connacht lads? Certainly he was around the squad at that stage. He's been around the team, played at Twickenham, and he's given all the time. And Johnny, come lately, gets in. Look, I'm sure it's not going to... If everybody thinks this is our best bet to win the World Cup, they'll be like, yeah, look, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, it is ruthless from Joe Schmidt. I mean, he is the person who also gave Ultan Delan his first international break. Like, it wasn't the most out there thinking. He was always a very, very talented young rugby player, so he was always going to come through. The Ireland head coach was always going to give him that opportunity. But I'm sure it was probably a little bit of a tough decision for Joe Schmidt to actually go through with that and to actually look at Klein. But I'd say we're going to see a couple of more ruthless decisions over the next couple of weeks. Just a couple of the UK back pages to run through. Ashes turmoil, says the back of the Guardian. Route defiant over Anderson despite crushing defeat. The London Times then go with abject England must summon spirit of 2005. And then the Daily Telegraph, the fortress crumbles. England surrender on final day as Australia go 1-0 up with crushing 251 run victory at Edgbaston.
The Irish Independent, finally for now, O'Connor is set to take Kildare reins. Sorry, I've got the Irish News coming your way as well in a minute. But anyway, former Kerry boss in line to make dramatic return to senior county scene with Lily White's Colm Key's story. And obviously O'Connor has strong links to Kildare through his sons. Colm Key has Keane and Aina, who both won county and provincial titles with a successful Moorfield team. And of course, Jack O'Connor was involved in some kind of consultancy capacity with the Moorfield manager, Ross Gavin, who apparently could join Jack O'Connor on his team. So I'm not quite sure who else is going to be on the team just yet, but certainly Kildare looking to make a statement with Jack O'Connor as their next manager. And then race to Japan heats up as Schmidt cuts Delan and Scannell for opener, and they've obviously got a Harry Maguire picture as well. We got the Irish News for you, and they obviously are leading with that Carl Frampton story. We'll get more details on that from Phil a little bit later on. Hart, try to catch the Dubs, not scrap the provinces. Yeah, okay. And then Geezer handed 2 more years. So there was that one letter that the Irish News published from an unnamed former or current Gaelic footballer. I wasn't sure. It was probably former, was it? Who said that Geezer was taking Armagh backwards. And then luckily the Armagh County Board have realised that that's not the case. And they want him to stay. Here's As. Pogba, silencio se juega. Se juega? Maybe we'll get a translation on that. Pogba, silence, I'm playing. I play. Yeah, that's not bad, yeah. Okay, there you go. My pidgin Spanish.
Is that just a voice in your head that's suddenly reminding you of what all that means?
Yeah, Jojo's outside. He's the voice in my head. Silence, we play. So, the point is that...
it means shut up and play.
All right, okay.
Just to correct you there.
Okay, that's good. It's an order.
I've got no idea what the context of that is. Is it just the Real Madrid offer that Manchester United are actually turning down, or what? I'm not sure. Just a quick one on Jack O'Connor. Like, obviously, as a Kildare man, I'm not quite sure how you feel about this whole thing. But I find this a very intriguing appointment because he was the first name that came into my head when Cian O'Neill did step away as Kildare boss. And
Malachy O'Rourke came into my head, I've got to say. Like, as a, you know, the Jack O'Connor team that Kerry won the All-Ireland with had some of the greatest footballers of all time.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, if your belief is that Kildare have underachieved over the past couple of years, then Jack O'Connor is probably the right guy for the job. But if you think that they're about right and that they need something innovative and they need some sort of new thinking and they need some sort of way of actually getting the best of what they've already done, then I'm not sure about this appointment whatsoever. Malachy O'Rourke would have been perfect in that sense, but if Kildare are like a sleeping giant in terms of the current crop of players that they have, then he's the right guy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the case, though. I don't think they've actually bottomed out or they've actually underachieved as much as you might actually suspect. Like, this year, how much better could they do?
Well,
like,
it depends.
with Daniel Flynn not there, with Niall Kelly not there.
Exactly.
Last year, they made the Super 8s.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if... it'd be great if Kildare could start having managers who are from Kildare and who are familiar with all the nuances of the club scene. Now, in fairness, Jack O'Connor is obviously very familiar with the club scene, given that he's been involved with Moorfield. So,
but Keane O'Neill would have been as well, and like that's.
Well, Keane was driving up and down from Cork the whole time.
Yeah, but like I mean, he's a Kildare man.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Look, there's bigger Gaelic football stories to fry, so we'll get to those. We'll come back to Kildare whenever an appointment is made. We're going to talk football with Anthony Moyles and Mossy Quinn next. Here's Jim Gavin reacting to Dublin's win on Saturday. Have a look.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
How could a KBC personal loan make a difference to you? Make a difference to your... Make a difference to your... Make a difference to your... Or make a difference to your... Apply for a personal loan with KBC to find out how we can make a difference to you and your pocket. KBC, the bank of you. Lending criteria, underwriting, terms and conditions apply. KBC Bank Ireland plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Jim Gavin, Dublin manager. You played a lot of players there who maybe haven't had much game time this summer, so were you impressed by anybody in particular?
I think overall, Stephen, is just a very, very comprehensive team performance. It's no surprise to us. We see the guys perform really well in training. They love playing for Dublin. They love playing in front of Dublin supporters. We had a fantastic crowd here from Dublin today. They're just phenomenal fans, and every time we take to the field to represent them, we're just so privileged that we can come away to performance and thankfully with 2 points today.
They gave a lot of love to Diarmuid Connolly, who came back to the starting lineup today. You gave him a warm handshake yourself there, despite the black card, whatever happened there. But do you think that's going to be good for Diarmuid's own self-confidence?
Listen, we like any player, if they're performing well in training games, we'll give them the slots, and there's no exceptions to that. Diarmuid loves Dublin football, Dublin GA. The players and myself love him, and he's been an outstanding servant, and has contributed an awful lot in recent weeks since he's been back with us. So we're just glad to get over today's game, and our focus now shifts next weekend.
Are you frustrated you only have a 6-day turnaround?
No, I think it's fair enough. Every team has the same challenges, so we just get on with it.
It's 4 minutes past 8. You're listening to OTBAM this morning if you're listening to us on the Go Loud app, or you're watching us on youtube.com/off the ball now. Anthony Moyles and Mossy Quinn have joined us to parse the weekend stuff, but really to look ahead to next weekend, because next weekend's the best weekend of Gaelic football that we've had in about a decade, right? 2 good games back to back, 2 days in a row.
Hopefully, anyway, yeah. Well, sitting here now, you can certainly look forward to it for a few days. You're expecting 2 really competitive games, and I think, I would say, probably without question, the 4 best teams left in the championship, maybe Donegal, but I suppose after a performance at the weekend, it's hard for them to sit here and say anything. But really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's set up lovely.
Is there any chance that Dublin just steamroll Mayo and that we're wrong about this being an exciting game, Anthony?
Yep, there is. But let's enjoy it for the next 5 days before we get into that. I looked at the Mayo game twice, and because obviously when you're watching it kind of real time, you're just kind of scratching your head saying, Jesus, amazing performance. But there was probably a spell between about the 45th, 46th minute, kind of after they got the penalty, Donegal, where they really started to crank it up. They put Murphy in full forward. Keegan went in after him. He wasn't comfortable in there. They started to play a bit more direct. And I think in that spell, I didn't quite get it, but I think they kicked 5 or 6 really bad wides.
Murphy had one on his left foot where he won another great ball out in front of Keegan and turned onto his left, and he was brilliant, but again it was a score he would expect himself to get, and when he missed that, they never got it back to that kind of 1 point, got it back level. That would have been really interesting. And even there was a pick up off the ground. Seamus O'Shea had a blatant pick up off the ground, I think it was 65, 66, and that would have brought it back to 2, I think, going into those closing stages. But Donegal certainly kicked away a number of opportunities in that stage.
I thought they did, and I thought what they got wrong as well, which kind of, I did with the Super 8s has kind of shown, your chat earlier on, it's like about dead rubbers and all that, but of course there's going to be that situation, but what I think the amazing thing that the Super 8 has shown is the strength of management teams and what they're able to bring to the party. Like if you looked at Mayo a couple of weeks ago, you never would have thought, I think, this performance was in them. You know, they were crestfallen. You know, they've lost 2 games this year. Donegal on the other side haven't lost a game, you know, and now they're gone. But yet they were able to get their matchups really, really well. Like Durkin on McHugh was, I think, the matchup of the game, even more than Keegan on Murphy, because if you watch, McHugh is so vital at bringing the ball into the areas and looking for those small little passes off, you know, from McBurty on the screen and all those different things. He's just so pivotal in that, and he just couldn't get going at all. Like Durkin got 3 scores. Like, that's unbelievable. Like, I know you were chatting earlier on about McCaffrey, but Durkin is my man who would take McCaffrey at the weekend. You'd put him straight on him. But you know, Horan, to be fair to him, has done a massive amount of work, because I honestly didn't see the way he could be so dominant against Donegal. Okay, they got some players back, but in that first half they were just ferocious. Like, I mean, I think the tackle count was 50 tackles to 20 after something like 40 minutes. That's serious intent, and they were swarming them, you know, and they were getting turnovers, really forcing it. And then once they took Murphy out, and Keegan did a remarkable job on that, and once they took McHugh out, they just said, right, well, we've got their 2 best lads, let's see how the rest of them kind of match up, and unfortunately they didn't, for Donegal's point of view. And I think before it was too late, that they obviously got a fair ripping at half time, and they came out with a different set of intent, but the game was done by then, really. You know, even though they still could have got, I think, a lot closer to them.
Mayo kicked a lot of wides in that first half. You'd be concerned about that?
Yeah, their efficiency levels definitely need to improve. Like, they could have been further out of sight, certainly in the first half, and some of their option taking, like, it wasn't as if they were like, they're forcing shots, they're kicking off balance, they're kicking under pressure. And I think the Dublin defence, Dublin are happy enough to go out in terms of they know they're going to put up a big enough score. They're not going to go out and totally shut a team down. It's been a while since they've done that, so there is going to be opportunities for Mayo. So I think they're going to have to be really efficient if they're going to, the longer to stay in the game, they're going to have to take those chances, particularly early on. I think it's important they get off to a good start this weekend.
At the same time, you look at Dublin's statistic, and they haven't conceded a goal from play yet this year, so they seem to be kind of living happily enough with that idea that they are giving up chances, and there has to be some sort of method to what can sometimes seem like a bit of madness in that Dublin defence.
Yeah, I think so, but I suppose you have to give credit to the goalkeepers as well. I know Stevens made a number of very good saves. Evan Comerford came in at the weekend, and I know Conor McAlliskey had a chance early on that he probably would have been disappointed not to finish, you know. So I think the goalkeepers deserve credit for keeping those clean sheets. But Dublin do give up chances, you know. It's the way they play. They generally, often when Keane O'Sullivan plays, Johnny Cooper did a little bit at the weekend, it's kind of that +1 role. It's not really teams rarely play 6 forwards up against them, so they generally have that additional defender there. But a lot of the time it is man-on-man matchups. You saw Rory O'Carroll, you see Davy Byrne, you see McFitz at times. They're kind of, I won't say left one-on-one, they're trusted to be one-on-one, they're trusted to go and mark a man, and I don't expect this weekend to be any different.
Did you learn anything about the Dubs on Saturday evening?
Not really, no. Like, I mean, the Connolly thing was obviously, it was a good distraction as well as being everything else, but he just gives them that something different. You could actually get the sense of it, never mind even watching it, that there was just a different feel for the game regarding the intensity and the dead rubber effect of it. But he actually just gives them something different as an attacking team. He plays a different way. You can see straight away that there's a different, set of tactics nearly around him. The idea was give him the ball in. I would assume, but he's such a good player. He's well able to drop into that hole. He gets his head up, and he's able to ping passes, and he has the confidence to ping passes left and right wherever he wants and wherever he chooses. So he releases inside forwards, as you would well know. They can have a different run. A lot of the Dublin inside forwards a lot of the time is doing loop runs and coming in at angles where McCaffrey, McCarthy, these guys have made really lung bursting runs, and they're looking for fellas to come off, or then there's a bit of patience with Kilkenny going left and right. Whereas with Connolly, as soon as you see him get the ball, you can say, okay, I'm going to make a run here, left, right. I'm going to come across, diagonal run, 20 or 30 or 40 yards from goal, and generally he'll get me the ball and I can spin and kick it. So for that sense, I think he brings a massive addition to the team. I think even for that alone, for 20, 25 minutes, possibly, I don't know, in a game that maybe is a bit stifled, and when defenders start to tire a bit, the conditions will take effect, obviously, on at the weekend. I think it's meant to be really, really heavy rain on Saturday, so you could have a situation where the ball is very, very slippy, and it might be just a matter of actually, let's just keep a hold of it.
Yeah, like it's interesting. Mike Quirk is writing this morning about this idea that a lot of people have actually come up with, that Diarmuid Connolly is a bit of a distraction for everybody. I think that perhaps that's overthinking it a little bit, that Jim Gavin wouldn't do anything to kind of sidetrack the media or anything like that. But is there a tangible sidetracking element of Diarmuid Connolly against Mayo? Like, we talk about Jack McCaffrey, we talk about Kieran Kilkenny, who perhaps at this moment are more vital cogs in the Dublin engine, that perhaps if you do have Diarmuid Connolly involved against Mayo, the Mayo management are thinking, well, we've had certain success against this guy in the past, and it is a diversion tactic against this specific team.
Yeah, I think everyone's overthinking it a little bit, yeah. Sorry, I think Diarmuid first and foremost can help on the pitch, and I think he kind of proved that at the weekend. Obviously in a lower intensity game than what they're going into this weekend, but his skill set that he brings, and Anthony talked about the runs forwards, you can make any run. Like, as in, you don't have to, sometimes when you're inside and you're looking at the person out the pitch, you kind of have to make your run based on their skill set. So if a certain player's coming, like Jack's strength is carrying the ball, he's a good kick passer, but he's a brilliant ball carrier. Whereas with Diarmuid, you know, if he has the ball in his hand, you can make any run, and generally he looks for the most dangerous one. So as an inside forward, if you're going to show, instead of having to maybe show out to the stand side so it can be popped in front, you know, well, I can go a yard here and then cut back, and he's going to look for that, and we've a goal chance on, you know. So I think he brings that element to the game. I also think, if you look at it, like Mayo a couple of years ago, when he came on at half time, they had Keegan detailed to Kieran Kilkenny. They didn't change that, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see a different management team back again this year, whether they change it, but I think he's a serious option going forward.
The other thing I think we did learn was that so there's been a lot of talk about Paddy Small kind of coming into the team, and then he got his chance and went off very quickly with a hamstring injury, and then apparently played well. I didn't see the last game, but he apparently played well in that one, and he's nailed that down. I would say he's probably one of the first attacking subs off the bench now. And I'd say suddenly Bugler has become an option as an attacking sub off the bench. Whereas before that, it had always been McManaman, you're our first guy up. And I'm not sure that hierarchy exists anymore. So McEntee's writing today in the Examiner saying that he thinks that the game at the weekend demystified the subs bench. I'm not quite sure if that's the case. I think their subs bench still looks pretty good.
The subs bench is still massively strong. Like, Bugler comes on and takes his chance, and that's really all you can expect. And you know, from a situation like it's a tricky situation to come in. We've been you know, you have a challenge game or something coming up to a big game. Fellas are minding themselves. There's not the same level of intensity. Whether you shoot the lights out or play really, really well, are the management team still kind of looking at you and going, well, it's only a low level intensity game, so yes, he's a 8 or 9 out of 10, but what would he be next week against Mayo? Is that a 5 or 6? So do you always go back to the tried and tested who've done it for me before? I think he can't. I think Bugler, to be honest, puts his hand up in a very, very strong way and says, listen, I can give you something different. The same way, obviously, as Diarmuid Connolly is essentially a new player for Dublin, for this Dublin squad, and he's a player who, like, Horan will be scratching his head on this week, kind of going, when he comes in, you know, how do I reshape things here? Because he gives something completely different to Kilkenny, to Howard, to Scully. Completely different, you know, even to Conor O'Callaghan. Conor O'Callaghan's a very direct type of player. Connolly is this, you know, guy who can just do different things. So I think he's up the pecking order. I think Bugler's up the pecking order. Strength-wise, I thought Rory O'Carroll had a decent game. You know, I thought he had a decent game when he came in. I think he was strong. So I think
got caught under a couple of balls though.
He did, but and Tyrone, you could definitely see that they were trying to expose him one-on-one, you know, where they flushed everyone out and then they looked to get a ball and then they were pinging kind of outside of the right diagonal balls in on top of him. There was one or two, like Evan Comerford came for one, looked a bit tricky, just managed to get a hand on it. You would imagine Cluxton would be able to patrol that, and now Dublin will also say to themselves, listen, this is a ploy. So, you know, next week I would imagine they'll have someone back closer in. Yeah,
well, who was playing sweeper at the weekend? I wasn't sure.
Well, I don't know. Again, Johnny Cooper was probably playing that. Right. He was in that 6 role, and again, when Tyrone dropped off, it would have been his responsibility, I would have thought. But again, they can filter different guys back. But I suppose when you're looking at the strength and depth, the reason Dublin have been so successful in the last couple of years is because they've had the best squad. It's not the best team. It's generally the best squad that wins the All-Ireland. And I don't know that I wouldn't agree with Tony in the Examiner today in relation to that, in terms of it demystified anything. like, do you put more weight on the last 15 minutes, someone coming on against Roscommon when they're 15, 20 points up, than you do in a game up and home? I know it was a dead rubber, the intensity wasn't the same, but it depends on, I'd imagine management are looking at a body of work rather than, okay, he had a really good 20 minutes here, let's go all in on that. You know, I think there is more to that. So I know you tend to kind of overreact at times and say, well, he didn't have his best 20 minutes there, so he's now gone out of the pecking order. I think what Dublin have shown in the last couple of years, they kind of can go a horses for course thing. Like Owen Merchant came in last year because there was very specific roles from, he matched up well with certain players and certain teams, and I think that'll be the same this weekend. I think Jim will look at the Mayo defence, if we're talking about it from an attacking perspective, and say, well, hang on, who do we think is going to be effective here? Like, we haven't spoken about Cormac Costello as well. Like, I think Dean is back into that starting team as the main free taker, but for me, Cormac has a huge amount to offer from play again, as he's shown in previous years off the bench. So like, you still have Paddy Small has been excellent, he's made impacts, you've Diarmuid, you've Kev Mack, you've Cormac Costello, so I wouldn't be overly concerned in terms of which order they come in or who they have. The options are there based on whatever matchup you feel needs adjusting, and whatever the weaknesses that Mayo are showing in that game. So who are the starting six then at the weekend if Dean Rock is going to start? Well, I'd be surprised if there was a change from, if you look at what started against Roscommon the last day, you're going to have Brian Howard and Niall Scully as the wing forwards, with Kieran likely centre forward, and then I think the inside line, Paul Mannion and Conor are definitely going to play, and I think Dean Rock is going to play. So for me, I'd be surprised if there's a change. If all six are fit, I would say that'll be the starting six. Yeah, and like, and if you talk about the different styles of play, I actually thought I was pleased to see they have predominantly in the last year or so been much more of a running team, and they're kind of grinding teams down. They're much more direct against Roscommon, and I know you talked about the option Diarmuid brings, but I thought Niall Scully played some really good balls inside. Brian Fenton, they were kicking the ball a lot more against Roscommon. They let ball inside, and like, there's times you're sitting in the stand, and I know there's high percentage passes, but I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, you've got Conor O'Callaghan in there, you've Paul Mannion in there, you've Cormac Costello in there. Kick the ball into them, get it into them. If they're in one-on-one, get it into them, let them have the ball. And I think it'd be interesting to see how Mayo do have a strong defence, and they generally they'll say to Brendan Harrison, okay, you go out and pick up, if it's Con or whoever it is. But the full-back line will play in front of you, which means there's goal chances there if the ball goes past them. Yeah, and if they get good enough ball in, and that's why. And I think the skill set, you see Con, you see Paul, they can win. Dean, they're very good ball winners, and you either have a runner coming off the shoulder, or if they're left in enough space, they can get a ball and turn and go at them themselves. So they were more direct against Roscommon, and I think it's something that it worked well for them in that game, and they will do it. And obviously then Diarmuid adds another dimension to that if they need to get deliveries inside.
Mossy, do you think that's a plan B, a sort of situation where they've kind of been in a couple of All-Ireland finals, mostly against Mayo in recent years, where they needed something a little bit different? It felt like they hadn't reached peak Dublin in those All-Ireland finals, and perhaps it was just how they set up. They needed something a little bit different, and they've come up with that this year, the more direct ball. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's more there's a trust there, and they play it as they see it. Like, and again, different guys have different skill sets, so it's not going to be when James McCarthy or Jack get the ball, you don't necessarily want them saying, oh well, now we're on to, we have to kick it long, we have to look long. Like, nearly one of the best things to watch in Croke Park these days is when Jack McCaffrey gets the ball, he lines someone up and you know he's going to run by him, and you can nearly feel it in the crowd. It's one of those things, and I don't think there's going to be a massive shift in terms of, but there's certainly going to be, the option is now there where they're going to say, okay, for a long time we were very high percentage, and we were very more, if it's not 100% on, we're going to recycle it, and we're going to come back across the line, and we're going to be patient. And they were doing that, and a lot of that was due to the way teams were setting up at the back, and they were saying, okay, we're going to pull you out of position, we're going to shift everyone over to this side, create space, going to create here, we'll get an overlap, and then we'll score. And whereas I think now, if teams are kind of trying to push up in around the 45-yard line and not get sucked in as much, and that might leave those pockets inside where you can say, okay, well, now can we just, let's put a ball in front of Con and let's see what happens, let's put a ball in. So I think it's more they play it as they see it in terms of how defence is set up, rather than going out with themselves saying, right, and what do you call it, plan B? I think the really good teams, and I think all four teams this weekend should be able to play in different styles, and they can adapt in game. It shouldn't come down to a big call coming in from a runner coming in making a change. And I think they're just trying to continuously improve and to continuously add to how they can hurt teams. If you were James Horan and his brain trust this week, Anthony, what are you saying? How are you trying to beat this Dublin team? What is the weakness that has emerged as they've battered teams week on week?
Yeah, I think this is above my pay grade. People are saying about the full back line, and the susceptibility to the high ball and all that stuff. And look, it's kind of there because it's nearly gathering pace itself. But high balls will always cause a bit of mayhem if you've one-on-one inside. They will. But if someone actually sat down and probably looked at the effectiveness of it, or the percentages of actual scores versus the amount of ball go in, and also it's quite a difficult thing to do because you need the right man on the ball who can actually hit that pass.
And the right men inside to be able to win it as well.
Correct. Yeah, and the fellas. So do Mayo have that? Like when you look at the kind of team, I don't think Mayo are going to bring anything massively different to it. You know, but Mayo are Mayo, and what they'll decide to do is they will have certain matchups that they will feel they have to get right. So the McCaffrey matchup is a massive one. I think you have to man mark him. Now, whether you decide that Durkin can do just a similar job that he did against McHugh, which is stick with him wherever he goes, but then as soon as we win the ball, you're also on the front foot. Possibly, yes, I think he has it, but could they use him somewhere else, and could they put someone like that, the young lad Carr, on him, who has massive pace? I think that'd be a big ask, but they could put someone who's just going to nullify McCaffrey and literally just take himself out of the game and say, well, I'm going to stop you. That's just one of many. Fenton is an issue, obviously. So, you know.
What do you do with Fenton?
I think you just have to match up against them, and as soon as they have the ball, you have to stick with them. You have to man mark them, and then when we have the ball, you just have to try and get away from them and influence the game. Like O'Shea did that to a certain degree. You could decide to put, Keegan on him. Keegan. I watched Keegan against Murphy. And, if you watch any of the plays, and I was a bit disappointed with Donegal. Donegal had to have known this was coming, and I really thought Bonner, not that he hung McHugh and Murphy out to dry, but there was a real lack of plan B from Donegal, I felt. They should have known that this is going to happen. They're going to definitely try to take these two fellas out. So we need to alter the way we play. We need to maybe look at, McHugh was still trying to make those Lundbersten runs, and Dersham was just cutting them off every time. Instead of maybe saying, okay, you know what we're going to do? They changed it in the second half when they put Murphy inside, but they needed to really question it from the start. Horan knew exactly what they were going to do, and he said, right, we're going to set up that way. Now, coming into this game, you have a situation with Fenton where I would think I'd put probably Keegan on him. Now, I know there's a massive height differential there, but at the same time, if you can get O'Shea close to him, or if you even just say, listen, we're going to give you the kick out to a certain degree, but then you give Dublin the ball, that's a recipe for disaster too. It's difficult to picture, it really is.
I think one of the things that the way the run has gone for Mayo, they might have come into a situation where they have a stronger squad now. Like Matthew Rowan came on. I think if Rowan had stayed fit, he would have been the type of player they would have been saying, well, let's see. And I know it's a big step up, a big ask, but I think he would have been the one they would have been looking at to try and match up in midfield. And he come on, played at the weekend. There's talk Diarmuid O'Connor could be back this weekend. So all of a sudden, Mayo could have that.
Can you start Diarmuid O'Connor after that absence with a broken wrist? Can you?
For me, you can. Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, as in if you have a broken wrist, you're still capable of doing your fitness work. You're still getting. So in terms of it's his match sharpness, but it was 5-6 weeks ago in terms of I would
he's probably even doing ball work. It's probably contact that he's the major thing that he's not allowed to do.
So either if you start him or you have him there to come in, and I think they have a little bit more strength and depth. Certainly when they look to the line now, there's a little bit more, I'd say, when they're looking at a guy coming in going, is he going to make an impact? Can he do an important role for us? And I think they probably have a call to make with Andy Moore on whether they start Andy or not. I know they brought him in early at the weekend. It's one of those, if you don't start him, how early do they use him? And I know Mick Fitzsimons has done a good job on him the last couple of times in Croke Park. And then if you don't start him, what will you get off Darren Cohen then? On the flip side, you start him and hope he gets a couple of points early on and he's in the game, and then you have another option, So I think these are the calls that James have to, some of the individual matchups. When I say there won't be a right or wrong answer, in the sense that if you put someone on Fenton and Jack does damage, or you put someone on Jack, with Dublin it's kind of a
rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, a little bit. So you can kind of overthink that a little bit. Sometimes you need to, you're going to need a massive performance from Colin Boyle. You're going to need other guys to step up who might be given a detailed, So I think that's from a squad perspective what to be looking at. But they will be hoping that they've more options for this weekend.
Cohen's a worry. His performance was a worry at the weekend. You don't necessarily. I felt after 20 odd minutes they had to bring Andy Moore in. He obviously came in to try and prove a point. He kicked a lot of, I thought, rash shots wide, especially in that period, that last 10 minutes of the first half. he obviously shows his ball winning ability and his ability to get up his head. He's an intelligent footballer, but you would have ratted your starting 14 to do damage, because now you have a big question mark.
Yeah.
Which is just what Mossy said. You're going, gee, do we start him? He's low in confidence now. He knows that this fella's breathing down his neck. And some fellas can take that on as if, no, I'm the man to do this, don't worry about him, or some fellas can shy away. So I don't know the lad, and it's going to be a big ask for him this week of whether he can go in against the best football team with the best back line, and can he really take the game by the scruff of the neck, or does Andy come forward? And then if Andy doesn't work out, you're now bringing in a guy who's low in confidence. Big question mark for them.
From a Dublin defence perspective, is Keane O'Sullivan fit? Is he? Because I haven't kind of seen him nailed down. Is he grand? Is it going to be him, or what do you expect to play in the back six?
To my knowledge, he is. Yeah, I don't know any different. And he didn't start the Roscommon game. I know Johnny Cooper was coming back from injury, and Johnny and James McCarthy came back in that day. So the back six will end up being like the options for the six are obviously Mick Fitz, Davy Byrne, Philly McMahon, Johnny Cooper, and then I think John Small, Jack McCaffrey will play, and so you've got Keane then to go in there. So there's obviously
someone to come out.
Yeah, now again, whether they play James in the backs or whether they push James into midfield.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably one of those defenders that lose out. So it just depends what way they go, whether it'll be Keane O'Sullivan or possibly Davy Byrne or Mick Fitz. I would have thought John Small will definitely play.
Yeah.
Jack McCaffrey will obviously play. I'd say Johnny Cooper and Philly McMahon will play. So it comes down to the other one.
I think they're slightly altering really the defensive setup more than anything. The way like Keane O'Sullivan would drop off, he would always be your extra man, as Mossy said, that +1 type thing. And I think teams have kind of tried to work that out now and have tried to attack him or go mark him and then take him on runs and bring him out. Which showed a little bit this year that there was a capability of doing that. So I think Gavin has realised that and said, okay, we need to just alter our defensive structure just a slightly thing.
How has he done that?
Well, I think by the Cooper thing, I think he's nearly brought nearly 7. He's, when you look at it, he has his set backline, but he's nearly brought in an extra man as well. So if 6 does get pulled out, he's trying to hold that middle a bit better. It's a problem. We saw it against Meath, Kerry and Meath this weekend. We spoke about this before. That middle spine, if you can manage to pull that 6 away, and you can get quick hands through the middle, there's goals there. And Kerry were probably once or twice it happened them, and the same thing has happened in Dublin, although they haven't conceded a goal. To be fair, if you can manage to do it, but it's the real key to if you're playing a 6 or even 8 defenders, if you can manage to get that middle opened up, it's like opening up the course that everything else falls apart and you can just send runners down with quick hands. If you have a situation where that is solid, obviously you have to go out to the wings. So the key to Dublin and the key to Mayo, to be fair to them, will be sending runners hard down that channel. And that's the likes of Keegan, Dirk, and these guys coming off, really running at pace, and trying to expose that middle. But again,
yeah, for a long time it was probably, whether it was Keane O'Sullivan, detailed to be that guy, and the other defenders knew, well, we'll stay here, we'll go to our position because Keane will generally get to where he needs to be. Whereas it doesn't necessarily need to be one person. I think one of the things you've seen teams do now, and it's not just Dublin, it might necessarily be the guy wearing 6 or the guy wearing 4, whatever it might be. If the ball's coming down the right hand side, then the wing back here can filter back, and you might see Brian Howard or Niall Scully or whoever, James McCarthy if he's playing midfield. So it doesn't necessarily need to be one detail guy, because that can possibly become a bit predictable, and then teams can say, well, we know in this situation when we're attacking, the number 6 is going to drop, so then we've an opportunity here, and that's when you can be got at. Whereas then it takes a lot more work on the training ground, a lot more trust to be built up, that if all of a sudden the 6 is now going pressing, thinking, well, I've got whoever's playing 5 coming in behind me, he has to know that's there, and it probably doesn't give you that same level of security, because if 5 has got caught up the pitch, or he's slipped, or he's the two of himself and the wing forward are dragging each other on the ground, all of a sudden you might have that hole there. So I think that's where that's one of the observations I've had in this year's championship. I think you've seen teams start to do that a little bit more, where a wing forward might filter, and again, it's not an expectation he's going to make a 70-yard run every time, where you don't see Dublin players or even Mayo players just running blindly back to get back into a spot. But I do think there's a possibility of doing that rather than having just one player detail to be that kind of +1 or that sweeper, you know.
It's a collective responsibility for the style of play.
I think so, yeah.
The other game obviously this weekend, which we'll build up to properly again later on during the week, is Tyrone and Kerry, and I make Kerry slight favourites on the back of pardon me, they've put in a signature performance already in the championship this year. Is that wrong? Or do we overrate that game against Mayo?
I don't know if we overrate it. I think yes, they possibly are slight favourites, but I think Tyrone are coming in and like that. It couldn't have lined up better for Tyrone, really, with the weekend that's gone, because he's able to try lads. He's able to see who puts their hands up. He's able to give fellas a rest. It wasn't a walk in the park for Kerry in Navan. They rested a couple of fellas, but I think at certain times they had to dig a little deeper than they probably would have wanted. And I think it probably also gives Mickey Hart another look at them in a competitive environment. The second half against Cork is the Tyrone that I expected. I do not think that Hart wanted to show that hand as quickly as he had to. I'd say he would have rather keep that as the ace in the pack. And I think against Cork, they were in serious bother at half time, and I think he had to do it. And Donnelly obviously went inside and made hay, and caused mayhem. And that's obviously the way. That's their plan B. I don't really think. I think they match up well. I think they're a strong, very, very strong physical team. Again, they've changed and they've altered sometimes the way they play. But Kerry have massive power going forward. The more in midfield, sometimes he's good, sometimes he's really good, sometimes he kind of peters out of games. He doesn't really dominate as much as I'd like to see him dominate. Their kick-out was torn apart a little bit by Meath when they really high-pressed them. Now, I know there was a breeze against them, but even the second half, I thought they did quite well on their kick-out. But their forwards play. But I'm still worried. I'm quite worried about their sixth position. I'm quite worried about that central area. It's not necessarily six, but I'm worried about that central area where sometimes they do get pulled and dragged, just like what we were just talking about. The communication, I think, is key. When you talk about Dublin, I think the communication in that, if you're playing that zonal defence, and having guys tucking in, so if the ball is over on the left and you're having guys, so that takes massive communication. Now, I'm not talking about roaring and shouting, but just even a quick word to Mossy, I've pushed in, you push out right. That's all it takes. But to do that in the white heat of battle is something that Dublin have down. The Tyrone defensive setup is extremely good, and they're extremely comfortable in it. And it will be very, very interesting. I think they'll bring absolutely everything in a very, very physical way against those Kerry forwards. I think Clifford will get, whatever he got against Donegal, he'll get twice as bad. From a physical matchup. I think O'Shea will get the exact same. And it's going to be question marks again for them, because they're a young forward line, and they're definitely going to ask them the physical questions first and foremost. There'll be plenty of afters, there'll be plenty of...
Talking me into Tyrone here.
Well, I just think they'll bring that edge. They have to bring that edge, because Tyrone, at their best, have always had that edge. They've always had that edge. They've always had the physical battle first. They try to wear you down, hitting you on the ground. They win a ball off you. They're talking to you on the ground as a forward. They'll have to bring that. But Kerry will have to realise that this is coming, and we just have to keep chipping away at the scoreboard.
Sometimes you really have to go through that, though, to understand what it is. And I actually think that the Donegal game might stand to them a little bit. If David Clifford made 25 runs against Donegal, he was probably checked 21 times. Yeah. He will be checked every single time. But the fact that he was through it, probably not to the same level, but the fact that he's gone through it in the last couple of weeks, and I think for me it's how the Kerry forward line react to seeing that defensive setup, and you can try it in training and you can practice it, but once you're out there and being in Croke Park, and if Sean O'Shea gets swallowed up and gets turned over and there's 4 or 5 of them in ripping the ball to move quickly, it's how they react to that early on. And but I do think this Kerry forward line probably have enough in them that they have that kind of cockiness probably is the word, kind of inside, that they back themselves, and I think they'll relish it. I think there will be times that they'll be scratching their head a couple of times and say, okay, that didn't work, we can't do that again. But once it doesn't get in on them, and once they don't kind of overthink it at times, I think if they keep the ball moving, they have guys, they've Stephen O'Brien, they've Paul Gainey, they've other guys, they've enough quality around them to help them, and I think that for me is the winning and the losing of the game. If the Kerry forwards can keep their heads, not get dragged down, not get into that where you see Clifford chasing a fella and trying to think, I'm going to get him back here. Like, that's not his game, that's not what he's there to do. If he's doing that, then the Tyrone backs have kind of won effectively, you know. So I think that's the thing. If the Kerry forwards can keep themselves in it, I think that'll be huge.
What is that like as an inside forward coming up against Tyrone, and there's a fella constantly in your ear or goading you or whatever it may be, and the ball's down the other end of the pitch? Like, would that have wound you up? Is that something really advice you gave to Clifford, basically?
Yeah, I think it was something that you had to learn. You kind of have to go through it to kind of understand what the right reaction is. And I think certainly the first couple of times that it happens, or certainly the first time, for me there was a kind of a wow, like, not a wow, but kind of you're kind of looking around going, this doesn't usually happen. You might get one or two, you kick a free or you kick whatever, you might get a small bit. Like, the Meath lads weren't saints over the years either, but like, it certainly wasn't to the same level. It was always a kind of they might have ramped it up, or it was probably more the physicality, it was the pulling and dragging and the hits you might get after the ball. And I think once you've gone through it a couple of times, you go, okay, well, they're obviously doing it to try and put you off your game. If you're starting engaging with them, if you start talking back to them, if you think, I'm going to nail him the next time he gets the ball, that's not what I'm there to do. That's not how I help my team. So I think that's the big thing. You've got to try and work out, well, what am I here? What's my role? How can I be the best player I can be for the team today? And I think they want to drag you down. They're doing that to try and put you off your game, and I think the more you realise that. But for me, it was definitely being in that moment, being in that situation, going through it 2 or 3 times. I'd react very differently now, or a few years after, than I would have done the first time. So I think that's why the Donegal game might stand to them, and you do learn from being in those situations. So I think that's one of the things, to make sure they stay in it and don't try and think that the best retaliation is for David Clifford to go and score a goal. And, you know, I think that's the big thing. And again, he strikes me as the type of character. You saw Donaghy years ago, remember the famous one in Armagh when he scored the goal, and you could see him, was it over Francie Bellew, and he shot him down to Paul Herty. You know, Donaghy was the type of character that was his reaction, and he knew that was the answer. And I think he said it before, that he was more used to it even from basketball, and even from the whole thing. Whereas it probably took some of the other Kerry forwards or Dublin forwards or other guys of that era took a bit longer to understand, well, that is the reaction, that is the way to do it. And Clifford kind of strikes me as that type of guy. I don't know that he'll need a huge amount, but
he's got plenty of it in club games in Kerry, as we all know. There's 3 quick stories I want to get your reaction to. Jack O'Connor, the Kildare rumours this morning. Is this a good move, Anthony?
Yeah, I was chatting to Mossy about it. He obviously, his 2 sons are playing in the Kildare. He does a bit of coaching there, but you know, I think it's a strange move from Kildare, in the sense of it's a county that I feel, after Keane O'Neill, I thought they'd go for someone like a Glenn Ryan type figure, or someone who's a former player, to try and, you know, help the identity there a bit more.
As in, they don't have an identity?
Well, I think they're a team maybe that are searching for it a bit more. You know, back in the Johnny Doyle days and the Dermot Early days, there was an identifiable, you know, the white jersey, the lily whites. There was this whole thing about the style of play that they had.
That was McGeeney.
Yeah, well,
that was McGeeney era. Like, because before he came in, gave them an identity. Took a little while, but it was clear what they were trying to do. And since he's gone, it's been, what are we?
I think it is a little bit. Look, it's funny. Last year, you know, they had the Newbridge or Nowhere. That gave them an identity for a period of time. Yeah. It gave them a cause. I honestly felt that they should have built on that. They should have had that kind of mantra nearly for the whole team. That, you know, it's this is us. This is where these are the heights that we can get to. I think Keane O'Neill was making progress. I don't know. I don't really. It's a very, very difficult situation when you're in the Leinster Championship and you have the behemoth that's Dublin sitting there all the time. It is very, very difficult because you're being measured against that nearly all the time.
Yeah, you kind of need to ignore that. But
yeah.
You need to become an established First Division team, like everybody's trying to do.
I think it has to be more than that. Like, as in, you might play Dublin once or twice a year. There's so much more that has to go into what's going on with the county. And for me, I think it's probably a good appointment if Jack does take it. I think he's obviously proven, certainly with Kerry, in terms of how his team's played, even his own character, what he's like. And I think you talked about giving them an identity. I think he'll come in and he'll certainly put his own stamp on it if he does come in and take them. And I think it'd be interesting to see.
Last thing I'm just saying, like, I mean, you'd know this more than anything. Maybe you don't want to mention it, but I think a lot of people would feel that O'Connor during that era, when he was over, probably should have won and could have won a lot more All-Irelands with that team. That would certainly be the The feeling that Eoin said to me a number of weeks back. Yeah, of course you could. But it's look, it's a positive appointment. You know, they need someone. They need someone early, and they need someone who's going to bring something different to them.
Paul Gavin taking the Wexford job?
Yeah, interesting. I'd say. I think Wexford football, once the hurlers are going well, footballers struggle, right? And you have a situation like that. It's nearly vice versa. He's going to bring a different dynamic to it. You know, he's a little bit different, and I think Wexford have always been a little bit different in football sense. You know, you never kind of quite know what you might get. But look, I mean, he's a fair job on his hands.
What's his pedigree?
Well, he's played and won a number of All-Irelands.
As a coach? Like, I mean,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much he has coached. I'm not sure. I think he was involved with London this year. He helped out them, I think, a bit. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Eoin. It is
a couple of development squads in Kerry as well, the schools team.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a very, very big... I think it's a risk from Wexford. I think it's a big appointment. It's a big name appointment. There's no question about that. And everybody here in the media will be delighted to have Paul Gavin involved with the team. It's the question, did they analyse what is exactly his footballing coaching pedigree rather than...
I'm assuming, well, in that situation, for me, I have a lot of respect for Paul taking it on, and I'm assuming he's going into this with his eyes open, in the sense that I doubt he's gone in saying, well, I'm going to coach a team, I'm going to do... You'd imagine he's going into this with a plan. He's looked at it and says, to be an inter-county manager at the moment, you need X support around you, you need, you know, expertise, you need skill sets. So for me, it's one of those, him as a figurehead, it's the guys he brings with him and the team he puts with him, and that for me will determine, you know, where they go as a team or as a squad. And I think that I'd imagine if I was a Wexford player, that's what I'd be interested in seeing. First and foremost, Paul Gavin gets your respect. You're there going, okay, I'd be interested. I'd be saying, yeah, this is a guy I want to see his thoughts on the game, how you play the game, how you prepare a team, and then who he has with him. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't have high caliber guys with him that are going to go in, and you've got, then it's the whole setup, because generally you walk into a dressing room, it's not the manager and two selectors anymore, it's the whole makeup of it. I think that for me is that'll transpire over the coming months.
Yeah, I think it would be a bigger risk for them not to get somebody high profile at the moment for Wexford football to try and, like, because they're in competition with the hurlers.
Yeah, and and you're going to answer his phone call if it comes.
Absolutely.
You know, if it's a Wexford fella who's been managing clubs, you know, there's probably history there. Like, I think Wexford have a lot of players. They just need to get lads actually involved and get teams out, you know.
Certainly there'll be far more interest in Wexford football next season because of it. Lads, good stuff. Thanks a million. Enjoy the week and the build-up and whatever comes. Who's going to be in the final? Very briefly.
Dublin, Kerry.
I think Dublin, Tyrone.
Right, okay. There is a debate to be had all week, and we'll be having it here. We're going to talk Man United next with Daniel Harris. First, I just want you to check this bit out. Nathan was in Brighton to catch up with the Republic of Ireland defender Shane Duffy. It's part of a wider chat with him about the value of a blood transfusion. It's the latest in our series in partnership with the Irish Blood Transfusion Service. He, of course, had a freak training ground accident after which he needed a blood transfusion to save his life. So that chat's coming your way next month. But for now, here he is talking about working with Mick McCarthy.
It's still quite new, honestly, but it's been great. Like, everyone's just come in. As any new manager will come in, everyone wants to come in and impress first, and obviously we've got the results on the pitch, and I think we're playing a lot better football than we were. We're trying to get it down and play and get more attacking, and obviously we haven't scored the goals yet that we've wanted to, but I think the intent's there, and Mick's great. Mick come around, give you a big hug and get you there, and he'll get you smiling. And that's what sort of the players needed after a tough year, and everyone's just bubbling, everyone's excited to come back, meeting up again.
Yeah.
And
he probably sees quite a bit of him in you.
Yeah, Mick was obviously a top centre half, so if I have anywhere close to him, I'd be delighted. Like, but he's so simple with me. Just do what you're good at. Don't try and be this fancy player or something.
He did make that comment about...
Yeah, no, and it's great because as I said, I'll never get ahead of myself. I know what I am, and I'm proud to be what I am. And
what are you? Because
I'm someone who wants to keep it out of the net. That's what I am. So whatever it takes. People say you can be this and this, but at the end of the day, I'm a centre half who likes to keep the ball out the net, but I can get it down and play, and that's what we're doing at Brighton now, and I feel very comfortable doing it. So if I can do both and get the right balance there, hopefully I can kick on again and be better than what I am.
Hey everybody, this Thursday OTB Sports Radio is going live for 17 hours uninterrupted. That's non-stop, Nathan.
That's right, Ger. 7 a.m. to midnight, we're going to be launching our Premier League coverage with our very own Deadline Day special. We'll have new shows every 2 hours.
With the very biggest and best names in football coverage that you've come to know and love from Off the Ball.
We're going to get stuck into the new football season, keep you up to date with all the latest news and transfers. Where can you hear it, Ger?
You can get us on the Go Loud app or offtheball.com/radio. Yeah, that's right. Brian Kerr, John Giles, Keith Andrews, Kevin Kilban, Stephen Kelly in studio. On Skype, Louise Quinn, Gary Breen, Johnny Walters, Kenny Cunningham and much more besides. So that's coming your way this Thursday to help launch our renewed coverage of the Premier League coming your way every Sunday here on Off the Ball. Now, I'm delighted to say we've got Daniel Harris with us to talk about the end of the transfer saga of the summer. Manchester United eventually got their man and at a fee that we kind of all thought was going to be the fee. So I don't know, Daniel, maybe they could have done this a month ago and given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a chance to bet him in. Does that matter? Does that mean that the Harry Maguire era starts a bit slower than Ole Gunnar wanted it to?
A bit slower than Harry Maguire himself. I don't know. I definitely think it does matter. And I think the thing that always sticks in my mind when these kind of things happen is when United signed Berbatov. They spent all summer haggling over the fee, paid what Spurs wanted anyway, and then just threw him in, and he never had time to really integrate with his teammates, who never had time to integrate with him. And it felt like it never really quite happened for Berbatov for that reason. And then if you look at Harry Maguire, who's a centre-back, and I would say that in terms of communicating with your teammates, centre-back is the key position where it's important to know what the other guy next to you is going to do. And I think United probably want Harry Maguire to run that back four. So, no, it makes, even if they save themselves £5 million, it makes absolutely no sense not to have done this deal weeks ago. Yeah. But they've done it now, so here we are.
Well, look, and we can talk about the implication and the football team in a minute, but I guess this just continues to speak to the fact that Woodward doesn't really... He's not at the cutting edge of football business when it comes to running one of the biggest clubs in the world.
I think what the problem that you have with people like Woodward and also with Daniel Levy is that these guys are businessmen. So for football clubs, it's about trophies and glory. For businessmen, it's about healthy balance sheets and profit and loss accounts. So when their ego is agitated and irritated and excited by getting the best possible deal, because that's who they are. So what Daniel Levy wants to do, what Ed Woodward wants to do, is they want to say, I could have got this player for X million, but I got him for Y million. And it's about getting the best possible deal. So they'll hang in there, they'll intimate perhaps that they're going to walk away, all that kind of thing. And you end up roughly paying the same amount that you would have paid in the first place, but perhaps you can say you paid a little bit less. And that's what people, I mean, everyone likes getting something for less than they were going to get.
Yeah, of course. But
there's a picture, and I don't think they see it.
They're going to make the money back at the end of the season when they finish higher up the table. Like, there's a direct cause and effect between getting players into your squad early and betting them in and making sure that you actually fully understand exactly what your back four is. Look, no point going on about this because we've talked about it now, but what is the actual starting back four for Manchester United when everybody is fit and integrated? What do you expect the big game back four to be for Manchester United this season?
I would expect it won't change that much. It will be Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof and Shaw. And, I mean, it's not bad. Wan-Bissaka, I think, will be a great signing. I wouldn't necessarily have bought him in that. For me, the two priorities for United were a midfield replacement for Nemanja Matic and then another attacking midfield player. And those were the two things I would have done first. But Wan-Bissaka's proven in the Premier League. He's young. He's really, really good. And so United had a free run at him. So it's kind of difficult to see how they could possibly have turned that away because you wait another year, the price goes up, you might have to compete with other clubs. So that was a really good buy. Luke Shaw has a lot of work to do. He was good for a little bit last season when Solskjaer just took over. He came back to pre-season looking like a marathon runner. And by the time pre-season was underway, he was back to looking like a hamburger. So it's really hard to see with Luke Shaw whether he's either got the right body type or the right level of commitment to extract the most from his talent. And also, there are now, for the first time, people starting to actually ask questions about his talent and not just his application, because people have seen enough of him playing a run of games to think, well, actually, why does he keep getting caught with men behind him? Why does he keep allowing his wingers to cross? But the other three members of the back four are pretty solid. I don't think that Harry Maguire is necessarily £80 million with the centre-back, but at the same time, if he's good, then any player, any transfer that any team makes, if that player is a success, then he's worth whatever money you're lucky enough to pay for him. So if that's what the price of Harry Maguire was, and Harry Maguire turns out to be good for United, then that will be money well spent, and he's probably better than what there was before.
Is this a Solskjaer centre-back, though? I mean, we look at Manchester United last year, and it seemed that at times they were happy enough to sit deep, to counter-attack from deep, and that seems to be something that Harry Maguire is quite good at in terms of being in that system. But it does seem that in pre-season this year they're playing a lot higher in terms of their defensive line. Is that something you expect to continue into the season, and does Harry Maguire fit into that?
Yeah, I think so, because one of the reasons Harry Maguire has been bought is because of his ability on the ball, which is, to me, seems a little bit more exaggerated than what it actually is. I mean, I've seen him run forward with the ball. I haven't seen him play that many killer passes. But even if he's able to pass the ball quickly into midfield and just find the right man, then that will be a difference between him and Chris Smalling, who is a much better defender than people think he is, but his passing is horrific. So for United to play with a high line and for United to play on the front foot and to dominate in midfield, which is what they've been trying to do in pre-season, the ability to get the ball into the better players quickly and effectively is important. So whilst I do have qualms about Harry Maguire playing next to Victor Lindelof, because neither of them has recovery pace. So if you're keeping a high line, that can be a problem. I imagine that they're hoping that between them, the fullbacks will be able to cover for that. And also, United will have enough of the ball so that isn't a massive problem. If you look at Manchester City's centre-backs, they were playing at the end last season, they were playing with Laporte and company. Neither of those guys can run, really, but they were managing to pull it off because they dominate the ball and the fullbacks are quick. And Fernandinho also does a job. So if United have got Shaw and Wan-Bissaka and McTominay chasing around, then that should hopefully enable relatively slow centre-backs to still play high.
If we forget about the transfer fee for a moment, Daniel, are we starting to see more of an identity, I guess, from Manchester United in the transfer window? We're now seeing, it seems, signings made with a view to the future. This is not an Alexis Sanchez signing. There is still a potential that Harry Maguire gets better as a player. Like we look at the Daniel James signing, we look at the Aaron Wan-Bissaka signing. Is there an identity now with how Manchester United are actually negotiating the window?
Yeah, I think so. And it's also not just that, it's that they're filling necessary holes in the team. As I said before, like they weren't necessarily the first holes that I would have plugged. But United needed a right back, now they've got one. They needed a centre back, now they've got one. They needed some pace up front, and they needed some pace on the break with Daniel James. Now they've got some of that as well. So actually, I like the signings. I think that they fit what is necessary for the club, and hopefully personality-wise they fit too. It's just what remains to be seen is whether they can actually hack it. And you never really know that until you see what happens on the pitch. So it's really hard. You see all these articles and people talking about this team's had a good window and that team's had a good window. You've got no idea who's had a good window until you see what happens on the pitch. But I would say that the three signings that United have made so far are players that should make a difference.
Well, let's talk about Dybala then, because Dybala was potentially one of those signings in a transfer window that destabilises things because of the amount of money that he was asking for, and they pulled out because of his wage demands. Certainly that's how it's been reported at the moment, which again, you know, it's going to be hard for a period of time where Manchester United miss out on players who the fans believe might improve the team. But if you're not being held to ransom anymore and you're re-establishing that there is actually a proper salary structure and we're buying players who are going to fit within that, then you've got a much better chance at long-term success than the piecemeal approach to transfers that has happened over the last 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, I agree. And because Dybala was similar also to Sanchez in that he was sort of seemed like the best player that would come to United at that point. And so I think it wasn't so much about the wages as they weren't sure that he was also going to be worth the wages because he didn't really want to come. He was being forced out by Juventus, and so he would only come if there was enough funds to make it worth his while. And so I totally understand United pulling out of that transfer. However, and there is a big however here, Dybala would have filled another one of those holes. United, number one, can't control midfield. Dybala would have helped with that. Also, they don't score enough goals because they don't create enough chances. And Dybala is a great finisher and also is a creative player who would have helped with both of those things. So it's fine not to sign Dybala. The question, though, is what is the fullback plan? And it doesn't really look like there's a direct fullback plan because Dybala was kind of an opportunistic thing in the first place. I was told at the beginning of the summer that United had spoken to Dybala, but then he only really came up again when United were trying to shift Lukaku. And I guess they thought, well, this bloke's a good player. We should try and have him if we can, because we can have him. So it's fine that United didn't buy him, but at the same time, they shouldn't really have been in that position with 2 weeks to go in the transfer market where they're negotiating with someone like Dybala. Because they should have sorted this a long time ago, because they do need to find 2 midfield players. And so they decided they wanted Sean Longstaff to replace Nemanja Matic. They refused to pay the money for him, and it was a lot of money. But if you think this bloke's going to be your midfield player for the next 10 years, then if you back your judgment, you might take a chance on that. They chose not to. I mean, who knows whose decision that was. And they also needed another attacking midfield player. They chose not to take a chance on Dybala also for more sensible reasons, probably. But then who is going to fill that hole in the squad? So what it looks like now is that I was told that they've made an offer of £50 million for Christian Eriksen, who I would say is a better player than what United have, but not as good a player as what a lot of the teams that United want to catch have. And also, by the time United plan to be good next year or the year after, Christian Eriksen's getting quite close to 30. And so I'm not sure that he will be the player to help take them over the top. But it looks like that's more or less what they've been left with. They can either get Christian Eriksen or that deal won't be done, but that appears to be it. And you don't want to find yourself in that position when you've had 2 months to get your deals done.
That means keeping Lukaku, or you sell Lukaku, obviously, because the transfer deadline doesn't matter from the Lukaku prospect. Do you see Lukaku being there in the 1st of September?
No.
Okay.
And I see both sides of that Lukaku thing. On the one hand, binning 15 goals from a team that already didn't score enough is problematic. And where are those goals going to come from? On the other hand, you're trying to start again. And starting again means getting rid of the players, the particular players that were stopping football from being played in a particular way. And in Mourinho's team, I would say that Matic and Lukaku were the 2 players that were making United play in a particular way and stopping them from playing the kind of football that you want United to play. That is also most likely to be successful and gets the most out of the other players that were in the squad. So I would be happy for United to get rid of Lukaku and not replace him. But I don't think that they should have ever found themselves in this kind of situation, because it was obvious 5 and 6 months ago that Lukaku had no future at United under Solskjaer.
Okay, so give me your team on the 1st of September then. You've got the back 4. We're assuming the goalkeeper remains exactly the same. So from there forward, who are the midfielders and forwards?
The midfielders will be McTominay, Pogba and someone else. It depends who United sign. If United don't sign anyone, it will. I guess it will be Lingard. The romantic in me would like it to be Angel Gomez. I don't think it will be him. He probably isn't ready. He probably isn't ready physically. And then up front, you've got choices. He's been playing in pre-season. Rashford's played through the middle and Martial's played through the middle. So it'll be one of those 2. And then I would personally probably be minded to make Martial win his place. So I would go with Daniel James on the left and Mason Greenwood on the right against Chelsea on Sunday. I'm not sure it'll quite be that. I think it'll be Martial and one of the other 2.
What do you expect from Man United this season? What's success for Solskjaer?
I think a good start will be really important. And Chelsea is a difficult game to start with, but it's also probably a pretty good time to play Chelsea, who haven't been able to buy any players, who won't be that settled. So I think Solskjaer, he needs to finish in the top 4, really. And he's got a pretty good chance to do that, because Chelsea are starting again with a new manager, with a lot of young players, and they're not under a lot of pressure to deliver. And Arsenal will always be Arsenal. Like they haven't reinforced the centre back. They've got some better players up front. Who knows how good Nicolas Pepe is? He's got some talent. He's had one good season in a crap league, so he might be really, really good. But I don't think anyone can be sure what he's going to do. Ceballos is a really smart acquisition, except he's going to spend the season ironing mistakes out of his game, and then he's going to bugger off back to Madrid. So it's a bit silly in that aspect, but I can see why Arsenal have done it. So I think that Solskjaer needs to finish in the top 4, really. But people will be patient if they can see that there's progress, that United are getting better, and that it looks like there's hope and there's a future. And it was the lack of a future and the lack of hope that got Moyes, Van Gaal and Mourinho all sacked. The problem for Solskjaer, and the thing that bothers me currently, is that assuming Lukaku leaves, he will not have been afforded anything like the same amount of money that Mourinho and Van Gaal got in their first summers. And there is work that needs to be done, and that is a problem. And not addressing the midfield, whoever's fault that is is negligent. And in the end, the reason why it collapsed for United last season, it was because the midfield wasn't good enough to protect the defence, and it also wasn't good enough to create enough chances for forwards. And so it was giving the opposition a lot of the ball. I'm hoping, as a United supporter, that McTominay, who amazingly looks like he's becoming a player, and I definitely admit that the first season he played for United, I never saw that, but you're relying on the midfield of McTominay, Pogba and someone else. And you're never quite sure what that is going to deliver, because McTominay is a kid who's learning. Pogba is sometimes good and sometimes not good. And I think that Solskjaer has been clever in that he's moved him back now. So he's more involved in the game.
Yeah.
And it's no longer his job just to hang around and hope that he does something good. I hope that works. And United actually played quite well in some of the pre-season games. They look like they know what they're doing. There's a pattern to their play. If they can keep that up, then they can definitely finish fourth and surprise a few people, because they have the players to beat some good teams also. It's hard to know how it's all going to fit together when the pressure's on and they lose a couple, which is why I think that a good start is almost essential.
All right, Daniel, great stuff. Great to have you back. Football's back. Thanks a million.
See ya. Bye.
Daniel Harris giving us some thoughts there on Manchester United fourth. Think they're going to finish fourth?
I think it all depends on how. I think Maguire is the cornerstone of their season's hopes almost. Not to put, I know there's enough pressure on him with the transfer fee, but I do think that it is the single biggest issue at Manchester United last year. What was it, 51 goals conceded? This is a big, big signing, and if he works out, if he turns out to be the perfect fit for this system that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer likes to play, then Manchester United could finish third. Now, I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case. I do think from a strategic point of view, in terms of like the question I put to Daniel there about the identity, I think that is a very positive move in terms of how Manchester United are moving. Like Kalidou Koulibaly was linked, Toby Alderweireld was linked to Manchester United. There were arguments out there to say that they might have been a better signing for the here and now, but for the long-term future, or certainly in the 3 to 4 year future of Manchester United, Harry Maguire is a far better signing in that regard. And will he be able to do it immediately? Well, Virgil van Dijk proved that you can be a world record defender for FIFA defender signing and still do the business. I see he's actually out in the media giving advice to Harry Maguire on how to do it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very, very kind of him to do so. So yeah, the Dybala signing obviously is not going to happen, and I'd agree with you that is a statement of positive intent really for Manchester United, that we're not going to become victims to how we've actually spent in the past. And then you shell out 80 million quid.
Yeah, and then Daniel Harris makes the point that Dybala is exactly what we needed. So you take, I'm a Man United fan. So you get rid of Lukaku and you inject Dybala in, and it's not the same as Alexis Sanchez. It's not somebody just kind of playing out the rope at the end of their career. It's somebody who actually wants to make an impact and who is a superstar in your team. And you're like, well, are they a better team if it's suddenly Dybala, Rashford, and Martial as your front three? It's not bad, is it?
It's not bad. I'm not convinced that he was the perfect signing, though. I'm not sure he ever wanted to come to Manchester United, and I'm certain that he wanted a lot of money, and that is why this whole thing has.
Good players deserve to get paid, and they're the fees. That's the Man United tax. When you're not in the Champions League, when you're not winning the league, when you're not the best football team in the world that you were for that short period of time. Look, we'll get the chance to go back and forth on that one again as Dybala rips it up this season. Or not, we'll see. Here's more from the latest in our series in partnership with the Irish Blood Transfusion Service. Shane Duffy's been speaking with Nathan. That full video is coming your way next month. It's great stuff. He discussed the future of his centre-half partner, Lewis Dunk, as well, who's obviously the subject of transfer rumours at the moment. He says he's confident that he will remain a Brighton player. Have a look.
Who knows what will happen between now and the end of the transfer window. I am worried that we may see the end of the Duffy-Dunk partnership. Brian Kerr said during commentary last season that be a perfect name for a donut shop. Dunk and Duffy.
There's been a few already.
Have you considered going into business together?
Oh, job, I'll be too fat then. I'll be eating them all.
You obviously do you get on well off the pitch?
Yeah, we're great. It's great. Like, obviously, he's one of my closest friends here. So, and that helps when we step out in the pitch together. So, plus if it's football, it's a bit cliche, but it's football, and if you're a good player, you're going to get linked around. But I can say, he's been very confident about this season, about being here, and obviously club captain now. He's from Brighton, and it's a big deal for him. And as I said, anything can happen between, but I think all the lads hoping he stays, and we're hoping that it's not over yet for me and him.
Yeah, you're worth what, 500 grand more than him in fantasy Premier League. I was picking my team the other day. I saw you at 5 million, and I realised the goals are there, but he's 4.5 million. There's obviously the risk of the own goal that you have to take into account. But still, that's a good 500 grand saving.
Yeah, he's one of my team as well, actually. I'm keeping that 0.5 for me. Yeah, for me striker probably, but yeah, he's got it in his locker. He scored 5 or more goals this year as well, so I think it's a good signing.
Yeah.
All right, we've been in search of the greatest minor hurlers over the past few weeks. It's over the last 25 years we're looking for. We're building our Electric Ireland Minor Jubilee 15, the best minors from 1993 to 2018. Last week we had the half-back line up for discussion. So the first poll here is right half-back. Rattling through our Electric Ireland Minor Jubilee 15 here, and Sean O'Halpine romped home in that one, 78%, James Barry on 10%, and Adrian Toohey on 11%. There's Sean Og as a minor. I hoped was fairly obvious. Next one is centre half-back, and so it was Austin Gleeson versus John Gardner versus Tony O'Gregan, and Austin Gleeson wins with 52%, John Gardner with 34%, Tony O'Gregan on 13%. So well done, Austin Gleeson. He's on our minor Jubilee team. And then our final one is left half-back position. It was Richie Doyle of Kilkenny versus Gavin O'Mahony of Limerick versus Joseph Cooney of Galway. And Joseph Cooney won 49% of the vote. The other two were split, so Joseph Cooney makes it. That's not a bad half-back line of Sean O'Halpine, Austin Gleeson and Joseph Cooney. This Thursday, we're going to be moving on to the midfielders. You can get involved as well. It's the Electric Ireland Minor Jubilee 15, and there's been plenty of debate about that one. So, right, a couple of other things that we just wanted to talk about briefly. Here's Peter Keane, the Kerry boss, speaking with Maura Trassa about his county's progression to the. That was a bit of a Ron Burgundy moment, wasn't it? Ireland have reached the semi-finals of the. Kerry have reached the semi-finals of the All Ireland, and here's Peter Keane in the aftermath of the game, speaking with Maura Trassa. We'll get your deal or no deal next.
Peter Keane, congratulations. You're in a semi-final, but as you said yourself there, I heard you say you were still a bit flat.
Yeah, I suppose maybe in that first half we were, but look, we got into it, and we pushed on a bit in the second half, and I suppose, look, we got fresh legs into the field too, which was a big factor as the game was developing, and look, we're happy.
That's unusual now, hearing a Kerry man saying he's happy.
Why would you say that?
Because even with a perfect performance, there's always room for improvement, according to a Kerry man.
Well, I suppose if you look at it, we came in here today, a lot of people felt it was a dead rubber coming in. We always felt it was going to be a battle we got, and look, we're heading for a semi-final next weekend.
You definitely got the battle, and Meath's undoing was yet again their shooting, but your own shooting, especially in the first half, was under par. Was that because, like you said, you were flat, or maybe because Meath made it hard?
Well, I suppose a bit of both. I suppose, look, if you look at it, we had a lot of opportunities and just didn't take them, and sometimes then it takes energy out of you and it takes your confidence away. But look, credit to the lads, they kept at it and they kept shooting, and we got our rewards in the end.
Sean O'Shea in particular, he put on an exhibition.
He did, he kicked well. Look, I thought all around the field when the battle came on, the boys stood up to it, and we're happy with that.
Finally, you get to be comfy on your couch now tomorrow to watch Dublin Tyrone, or are you going to go travelling yourself and have a go?
My God, we'll have an awful journey home. Good luck, Maura Trassa.
Thank you.
So he wasn't going to the game then? He was going to just watch it on video? It's fair enough.
Neither, there was nothing to see.
It's true, it's a good point.
What a question from Maura Trassa. It's unusual for a Kerry man to say he's happy. So insulting.
What?
I'm happy all the time. We're the happiest little county in the world.
Oh my God, you're never happy.
Always satisfied.
Never happy. The Specsavers Power Rankings, we're getting down to the business end of the season. There's really only, does it matter now? Is it possible that Mayo put it up to Dublin in such a way, say the game's a draw and there's a replay, and then Dublin win and they wipe the floor with whoever in the final? Is it still possible for Kerry to finish, for somebody to finish number 2 who doesn't reach the All-Ireland final?
Of course it is. There are so many layers to the power rankings. There's such intuition that goes into it that, of course, anything can happen with the number 2 slot. Somebody who's knocked out could make the top 4.
Already?
The tension.
Somebody who's knocked out could make the top 4 at this point. So yeah. Donegal could still make it?
Yes, they're currently in the top 4. Will they drop out, really? I'm sure is the question on everybody's lips.
So this was last week's, just to remind everybody. The OTBAM Power Rankings is brought to you by Eoin Sheahan on his own, with nothing to do with me. Dublin number 1, Kerry number 2, Donegal number 3, Tyrone number 4, Mayo number 5. So obviously Donegal chronically overrated by Eoin's power rankings this time last week. Brought to you by Specsavers. And Donegal will have to be shuffling out of that now, as we know. But it's who is number 2? Kerry were number 2. Can anything change? Do Mayo suddenly get elevated to number 2 on the back of beating the team in 3rd?
Well, I'm not giving anything away.
They just get up to 3rd? I don't know.
Like, power rankings are for tomorrow, where like all will be revealed tomorrow. But certainly, that's one of the questions I've been mulling over for the last few days. It's the only thing that's really been on my mind. Do Mayo deserve to go above Kerry?
Do you think that Kerry are going to beat Tyrone at the weekend?
Yes.
You do?
Yes. I do believe so.
Do you believe that it gives you some measure of revenge for the fact that they humiliated you so ritually in the noughties?
How did they humiliate us in the noughties?
Beat you 3 All-Ireland finals.
How's that a humiliation?
2 All-Ireland finals in the semi-final.
How's that a humiliation?
What do you mean? Completely changed the way you play football. Shocked Kerry to their core to the point where they abandoned their free-flowing footballing principles and became one of the most defensive teams for a decade.
That's not true.
That's 100% true.
That's not true.
It's absolutely true. Go on.
How did they play in 2009? They were like literally the year after Tyrone had beaten them for the 3rd time. I didn't notice.
Who'd you beat in 09?
In the All-Ireland final, beat Cork.
Do you count the All-Irelands against Cork and Mayo?
Yes.
You do? Okay, fair enough. I mean, most counties wouldn't. After this quick break, you're going to hear Andy McEntee reflecting on Meath's championship run. Phil is up next with the news and some transfer tittle-tattle.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Let's face it, the Irish summer has serious commitment issues. It's always late, disappears for weeks at a time, and consistently breaks its promises. But not us. At Electric Ireland, we're committed to giving you an 8.5% saving on your gas and electricity year after year after year after year. Visit electricireland.ie/join for the kind of commitment you deserve.
Estimated annual bill €1,736. Average consumption, urban 24-hour, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Residential, dual fuel, direct debit and online billing. Terms and conditions apply. See electricireland.ie/EAB. Rates at 1st of April 2019, subject to change.
And no matter what journey you're on, it's the last couple of steps that tend to be the hardest. So we have a lot of work to do. This group of players have a lot of work to do. They have already done a lot of work, but there's more to be done. And if we want to be really competing at this level, well, then there's no doubt that we have to improve in a lot of areas.
It's Andy McEntee, thoughtful in the aftermath of his side's championship exit at the weekend. Obviously, they'd gone out the week before, but you know what I mean. It was their last game in the Super 8s. Phil is here. Phil, how are you?
Very well, yeah.
What's going on?
Only one place to start, Ger. Kildare football.
Is this really the biggest story of the day?
Who can remember, or who could forget even, Mick O'Dwyer's time in charge of the Kildare senior footballers, Leinster titles, an All-Ireland final in 1998. Kildare looks like they're going to go back to a Kerry man. Jack O'Connor.
Well, like, who could forget the fantastic bunch of players that Mick O'Dwyer had? It's not comparing like with like, really, is it? Like, were you as hopeful before Mick O took charge as you are right now? Like, was Kildare football in a better place?
I don't know. It was interesting to hear. So Mossy thought it was a good appointment, and Moyles was a bit not sure. Just need to kind of see what's the point with all these, right? What is the point? What are Kildare actually trying to do? Like, if you look at the crisis that Cork GAA has had over the last decade or so, all their effort and energy seem to be poured into underage structures, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. They have unbelievable underage teams piling on the talent year after year after year now, in both hurling and football. And Kildare have obviously had a bunch of good underage teams coming through, but to what end? Like, what is the identity of the team? What is the style of play? What does the county stand for? And if you can find a manager who can galvanise all that and pull all that together, great. But if this is just a short-term appointment that is going to be another band-aid on top of everything else and it isn't actually sitting into an overarching plan and a structure, then, like, what's the point? That's
like, you would imagine that,
but
like, those questions have surely been answered. Like, it seemed that with Keane O'Neill you were getting that plan and you were getting that structure with him. It just hasn't fully worked out, really. Like, it's hard to tell why exactly that is, why exactly we didn't have more success with Keane O'Neill. To be honest with you, I think it's just that they've reached their ceiling. just because they're Kildare and just because they've got to an All-Ireland semi-final in the last decade doesn't mean that they have a God-given right to get back there again. I'm not just sure. I think they are a sort of bottom of Division 1, lingering around the top 4 teams in Division 2 team. That's where they are. They're a top 12 team just in and around there.
But you need to see progress year on year, and that hasn't been the case. Whereas
he has, like, in fairness to Jack O'Connor, obviously he has success at all grades.
Yeah, he has success at all grades. Right. The one thing is that he has dealt with one of the greatest teams of all time. That Kerry team are right there in the conversation with the original Kerry team and the Tyrone team, the superstars that they had. Like
he managed the best
the
Kerry team that I've ever seen.
Gavin,
in 2000.
Gooch, like they're all on any county team in any era, guaranteed starters. Like even this current Dublin team, they would all get in that current Dublin team, and you're like, wow. So he won't have that same talent pool, and you just hope that he can deal with a different calibre of player and inspire them to get to the level that they need to get to. Kildare are a very nice team. They were really nice to Tyrone when Tyrone came to Newbridge this year, and Tyrone walked all through them. And you're like, look, there's a way of playing Gaelic football. Unfortunately, it is very cynical, and it's knowing exactly what the dark arts are, and we don't have any of that stuff. We weren't engaged in any of that stuff. We were like polite, the type of young man that anybody would be happy to bring home, whereas the Tyrone lads are like...
So you need a Kerry man to teach Kildare people how to be cute hooers and get away with things.
Well, I mean, if that's their new identity, I'm on board.
Well, obviously, Kieran McGeaney was in charge of Kildare before Keane O'Neill, and he's going to remain in charge of Armagh for another 2 years. He's been manager for 5 seasons now, and Armagh had a good championship, ran Mayo very close in the qualifiers before a 1-point defeat in Castlebar. We could find out today the full extent of Jason Doherty's knee injury. It's feared the Mayo forward may have torn his cruciate ligament in Saturday's win over Donegal and Castlebar. And obviously he'd be ruled out of the semi-final against Dublin on Saturday. David Clark and Donald Vaughan are expected to be available for that one, so James Horan might have a decision to make on who he starts in goal. Dublin will play Cork at Croke Park on the 25th of August in one of the All-Ireland ladies football semi-finals. Remember, that's going to be a double header at Croke Park for the first time. All-Ireland champions Dublin beat Kerry yesterday in Tullamore by 5-15 to 2-9 to set up a repeat of last year's final. Sinead Ahern scored 2-5 for the Dubs. Before that, Cork were crowned All-Ireland Minor A champions with a 4-11 to 1-8 win over Monaghan in the curtain raiser. It's believed Wayne Rooney is on the verge of returning to English football as a player coach at Derby County. He still has 2 years left on his contract at DC United in the US, and talks about a move to the Championship club are at an advanced stage. He's actually already arrived in England, but speaking after last night's 2-1 win over Huddersfield, Derby manager Philippe Cocu wasn't giving much away.
We are working on completing the team. We said it was not complete yet. It's true. We're working to get the team done, and I cannot say anything about names before things are done.
Holders Derry City booked their place in the EA Sports Cup final last night after a 4-2 win over Waterford in extra time. All 4 goals for Derry were scored by teenage striker David Parkhouse. And Belfast boxer Carl Frampton was due to fight Emmanuel Dominguez in Philadelphia on Saturday night. The fight is off due to a freak injury. Frampton suffered the injury when a large ornament in his hotel lobby fell onto his left hand. And when I say a large ornament, it really was a large ornament. Came through these curtains and landed on his hand, fractured a bone. And you can see that's his left hand.
That's badly swollen.
Yeah, so disaster.
Career threatening?
Hard to know, but that was the picture there. You'll see.
Is there, case in the offing?
You'd have to think there could be. Like if you were the owner of that hotel, you'd be sweating.
Yeah, totally.
Let's just say that.
All right. Now it's time for this.
To be starting now is a dream come true for me.
It's deal or no deal. We're going to start with that news that Phil just brought you about Wayne Rooney. Obviously, Derby County have said that there's a dual role on offer apparently for Wayne Rooney. He can be both a player and a coach, which might end his American hell. At least that's how Colleen has apparently been thinking of their stay in Washington. Although he seems to have been enjoying himself and, scoring lots of goals and having the crack, and the league season isn't over just yet. Are they still in with a chance of making the playoffs? I don't know.
I think everyone has a chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, good answer, Phil. Sorry, I put you on the spot with a terrible question there. Good answer. Rams owner, it says, Mel Morris feels Rooney could provide the impetus required to get the club back into the Premier League. Are they right to do this, and do we believe it'll happen?
You can see it now. Wayne Rooney scores the winning goal in the playoff final to make up for all those playoff final defeats. Watched them last night, actually, against Huddersfield. So they're pretty good. Tom Lawrence, you'd be sweating if you're a Derby fan over the next couple of days, because he put in such a good performance. You'd be thinking, would another club have a look at him?
Right.
But yeah, they're just missing one or two players. I don't know, because where Lawrence played last night was a central role, almost like a free role, and that's where you'd imagine Wayne Rooney would play.
Is Wayne Rooney playing midfield? Is he playing, where is he playing? Centre back? Is he fast enough anymore? I don't know.
But one thing we're forgetting here is Wayne Rooney put in a stunning performance in the MLS Skills Challenge. That is the sort of player that Derby County are going to get. Like, does Kaku, is he delighted that he's going to be the first facilitator of Wayne Rooney's coaching career?
I don't know.
That is, if I'm manager of Derby County, I don't want Wayne Rooney coming in to be player coach. Like, coach imposed on my management team. I think it's a bit of a disaster on that front. But from a player's perspective, I think it's only the MLS. But he's shown himself to still be more than capable.
He's still in good shape.
The Washington Post, well, he's in the same shape he was always in, right? Never good. Never good.
He's big boned.
The Washington Post report that Burnley are also interested in bringing a 33-year-old back to the Premier League. This is one we'll be keeping an eye on. If you had to put money down now, is it Burnley or Derby or DC United that he's playing for?
I think he'd have more crack playing for Derby, because they do play decent football.
Good point.
But Burnley, he's going to have to put in a serious shift.
Yeah. No thanks to Burnley. I think he's going to be playing for DC United. Everton put together a £100 million package to sign Crystal Palace forward Wilfried Zaha. Do we believe that Zaha is on his way to Everton?
This kind of has the bang of, like, your mom giving you £5 to go into the shop to buy a chocolate bar, but you've got £5, so you're going to spend it all and stupidly splash out on a load of Stinger bars. That's kind of exactly how this feels.
Stinger bars are good, by the way.
They're very good. Everton,
not great for your teeth.
They're horrific for your teeth. Everton are completely overpaying the odds here. This is not a good financial move. Like, if we're using the same standard that we're measuring Harry Maguire by, though, you would actually say, let's actually forget about the money. But the thing is, there's also players involved in this, and you've got Cenk Tosun and James McCarthy perhaps going the other way. Now, I don't think that Everton will lose too much sleep if they leave and they've paid that much money and Wilfried Zaha turns out to be a star, but they're looking to make signings that will help them break the top six. And it seems that Arsenal, once the £40 million bid was rejected, weren't too interested in going above that. For me, that's a bit of a red flag.
Well, if they're getting 50 million for Wan-Bissaka, Palace are thinking, like, Zaha, we've got to be getting 70 or 80 million for this lad.
I can't agree with the 40 million red flag thing. When the 40 million plus £1 for Luis Suarez was rejected, that wasn't really a red flag in Luis Suarez. Yeah. Just saying, there's a bit of track record there.
Well, okay, that's true. Fair point.
Beauty in the eye of the beholder, I would say.
If you're comparing Luis Suarez to Wilfried Zaha, though, we initially have a problem.
It'd be a disaster for Palace. Like, all well and good getting all the money and getting, like, James McCarthy, we don't know, like, what condition he's in. Is he going to have another injury? Cenk Tosun's not exactly prolific. They have a problem scoring goals. Roy Hodgson is a lot of people's favourite to get the sack. And if they were to get rid of Zaha 2 days before the transfer window closes, Roy may as well walk out with him.
It's a good deal for McCarthy to get to a team like that, though, right? Because he's going to play.
And he gets to play with James McArthur again. Back in the Hamilton days.
Do we have any hope that James McCarthy at this stage can come through and, like, played a lot of games as a young man, has now probably caught up with the amount of games that he should have played for his age because of the couple of years that he's missed out.
Yeah.
So maybe this is tacking on a bit of time at the end of his career.
I hope so.
It does happen to a lot of players where these injuries, you know, they find form eventually after it. I'm not writing them off just yet.
No, I wonder, though, if you have a certain amount of injuries as a player, when does it kind of get into your mind? That I can remember the Ireland-Scotland game. It was McCarthy was meant to go back to Glasgow and play, and he got an injury a few days beforehand. But what was very strange, this is when we used to be out in Malahide and we used to get to see, he walked around the pitch. It was almost for show to the journalists to say, do you know what, I'm trying here, but I can only walk. I just want to show you all. Whereas there was a theory going around that he just didn't fancy, a lad born in Glasgow didn't fancy going back to play. But ever since then, really, he has always had niggling injuries. And I don't even know, when he finishes playing, he's just going to be one of those players that we said we never saw the best of. But when we saw the best of him, especially in an Ireland shirt, I think his best games were actually when Glenn Whelan wasn't playing, when the focus was on him and that kind of deep midfield role.
Look, okay, so you're saying he's done. I'm saying I think that a move to Palace would be great for him because he would get to play in the Premier League and I think he could establish himself there. All right, so Arsenal have apparently tried to make peace with Laurent Koscielny, but he ain't having none of it. 33-year-old defender who refused to tour with the Gunners refused the offer to talk. The Mirror reports Gunners boss Unai Emery was still waiting to give Koscielny another chance, even after the 33-year-old refused to go on the club's US tour. Owen, if this is true, what kind of an example does this set for the rest of the Arsenal squad?
Well, not a good one. Clearly, be pretty bad mismanagement. Then again, who actually wins? Who is the winner in that if Laurent Koscielny backs down and actually decides to stay with Arsenal? I'd say there's an argument to be made that the hierarchy have actually put the foot down and say, we're not giving in to any of the transfer speculation, we're not going to sell you. To be honest with you, maybe they're waiting, they don't want to put the cart before the horse here a little bit. They want to make that defensive signing, whatever it may be, in the central position before getting rid of Laurent Koscielny. And if that doesn't happen before this week, because it is deadline week, then you just get rid of Laurent Koscielny. Now, there is obviously a couple of people.
I think, to be honest, I think apparently his deal to Bordeaux, it's done. So he's gone.
It seems that way. I wouldn't be hopeful at all.
I'm worried about Arsenal defensively, but I was. But then they signed Pepe, and I just thought to myself, do you know what? Arsenal are going to be unbelievable to watch. They're going to be just all-out attack. They're going to concede goals. There's going to be they're going to be the team to watch. That there's no 0-0 draws when you watch Arsenal, and they'll blow certain amounts of teams away. They'll break your heart watching them because you think, if they just signed a central defender, they'd be all right. But it's hard to see them getting a decent centre half in the next couple of days.
Well, Upamecano from Red Bull Leipzig is the one that they're looking at. That is
how much?
What is it? £60 million to
100, depending on the. It's throw a figure down, lads. Let's see what they come back with.
And they want more. He's only 20 years old. He's a French centre-back. He looks pretty good on the ball, which is exactly what Arsenal need. Another passer in the team, not somebody who's actually an excellent defender. But it seems that if they manage to sign him or Rugani from Juventus, I think that would cap off a pretty good transfer market, even if Laurent Koscielny leaves.
For a team that had 40 million as a transfer budget.
It'd be spectacular, and Raul Sanllehi has to take huge credit for that. I mean, he used his inside sources to get Nicolas Pepe to lure him to Arsenal, and I think caps off to him if he manages to make one of these defensive signings.
Now, the other thing that happened at the weekend was this mad transfer rumour where Coutinho was definitely in talks, Barcelona were definitely in talks, and it was all go, it was all Arsenal. It looked like a done deal at one point, out of nowhere. It was a 15-minute storm on Twitter. Wow, that would be mad. And then everyone was like, no, not happening. Definitely not happening.
Yeah, well, that would have been absolutely ludicrous. That would have been the most bizarre signing of the summer for Philippe Coutinho to decide to join Arsenal. I mean, Arsenal know where they're at. Getting Nicolas Pepe was a bit of a coup, I think. So putting Philippe Coutinho into that situation, that would have been would have been the signing of the summer for sure.
But living in London's very nice. You're rich.
Loves it.
Yeah, I mean, you get to be completely anonymous on and off the pitch.
Yeah, you get to be leisurely off it and on it. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful way of life.
Should they be going all out to try and get him?
Well, of course they should, but
you just think it's so ridiculous that it's
I should be going all out to win the lotto.
I mean,
do you not go all out?
I've never actually played lotto. What? I'm sensible. And Arsenal should not be trying to sign Philippe Coutinho. Get on a plane to Leipzig right now. Get yourself into the former GDR and sign that guy.
Wow. All right. According to The Athletic, Sané has told his teammates he wants to leave Man City, but the champions are believed to be asking Bayern Munich to improve their bid. That fee will be north of £100 million sterling if this happens. Would he be missed at City? Has he been underused by Manchester City?
He certainly would be missed, yeah. He's come up with some big moments. It's strange that he doesn't seem to be, Guardiola doesn't seem to be fully convinced by him. Now, the fallout when he missed out on a place in the Germany World Cup squad, people started then thinking, he's got an attitude problem. But I don't even think it's that. I think maybe sometimes he just does things on the pitch that Guardiola doesn't want him to do. As, he obviously works on things in training, and it's that's not what we practiced. But Sané is a quality player, But would going to Bayern Munich not be a step down? Like, I know he'd be the poster boy for Bayern Munich, and you know, he's back in Germany. I'm sure he'd be well looked after in terms of money.
Guaranteed to win the league every year, you know. Always in with the shout of winning the Champions League. We've got a minute left. Asa reporting this morning that Man United are close to signing Christian Eriksen and that Bruno Fernandes will go to Spurs. How legitimate do you think this report is out of 10?
About 4.
Oh, I think it's much more legitimate. I think there's a good chance this might happen.
Both deals, though?
Well, certainly Eriksen. The Eriksen deal.
Eriksen, yeah, I'd put that higher up, maybe 6 or 7 out of 10. And by the looks of it, you'd be getting him on the cheap.
Yeah, 50 million. Not bad.
I think Phil's right. I would give it a 5 out of 10, though.
Harry Arter might be on his way to Fulham from Bournemouth. This is a good move for him, right?
Yeah, he'd get to play with his brother-in-law. Or for his brother-in-law, Scott Parker.
All right. Okay, didn't realise that. Okay, good stuff, Phil. Thanks very much.
You get dropped.
Or else you can do, and you can never complain about it. That's our lot for this morning. The podcast is on the way. You can get that on the Go Loud app, or indeed wherever it is you get your pods. You can, of course, watch the show back on YouTube. You can hit subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/offtheball, and anytime we go live, you'll know about it. You can also tell your Alexa, play OTB Sports Radio, and we'll come on 24 hours a day for you. OTB Sports Radio is live all day this Thursday. You can get that on our website, offtheball.com/radio, or as I said, on the Go Loud app. We're back on air and online from 7 o'clock tonight. OTBAM is back at 7:30 tomorrow. Good luck.
Let's face it, the Irish summer has serious commitment issues. It's always late, disappears for weeks at a time.